Morning, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to our Tuesday morning meeting, May 28th, 2024, Board of County Commissioners. My name is Andy Hunthausen. To my left, Commissioner Tom Rolfe. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Rolfe's left is Nadine McCarty. She'll be taking care of us today. Thank you, Nadine. To my right, Commissioner Candace Payne.
Good morning.
Morning. And we have Frank Cornwell, our Chief Financial Officer. Good morning, Mr. Cornwell. And Roger Baltz, our Chief Administrative Officer. There is a sign-in sheet in the front as well as agendas. And we are going to be having a different sort of meeting today in that our agenda is full of department and offices budget presentations. So we'll be going through a number of budgets today and getting those preliminary numbers and making sure that we're presenting them to the public so that they can, anyone out there can participate in this process. We are waiting for the treasurer, clerk, and recorder. Her budget is first. And with that, we will take a short recess and see if we can find her. So we're in recess for the moment. Short recess. That's perfect. All right, good morning. We're going to reconvene. And again, this is Tuesday morning, May 28th, Board of County Commissioners meeting. And our first guest today is Treasurer, Clerk, and Recorder, Amy Reeves. Good morning. We are again doing general budget presentations most of the day today. So we'll turn it over to you, Amy. Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners. Today I'm presenting my budget for the 2025 fiscal year. I have the Elections Department first. So we'll go through that, but I'll do a general summary to begin with. Our personnel budgets include a 3.5 COLA step increases and health plan contribution increase. We have fixed charges increased over $35,000 due to cost increases and software licensing requirements. Below is the comparison to the fiscal year 24 budget. Please keep in mind in fiscal year 24, we had a city, school, and primary elections, while in FY 24, we may have the school, that should be while in FY 25, we may have the school Helena Valley Irrigation, which is the HBI, federal general, and other requested elections. Recent legislation has caused added workload, staff time, and other administrative costs. DOJ is replacing Merlin with CARS. That's our motor vehicle computer system that we use downstairs. That processes motor vehicle transactions and will be turning all equipment and related expenses of maintenance and replacement. The county is replacing its finance system, which should go live July 1st of 2025. This will affect the accounting division's budget for necessary equipment and additional training for staff. Do you have any questions on me before we start?
I just wanted, thank you. I had, the question is regarding the DOJ is replacing Merlin. Merlin, as I recall, was new 30 years ago. So hopefully this will make downstairs more functional with CARS for motor vehicle transaction, and we'll be turning over all equipment and related expenses of maintenance and replacement. When turning over, that means the county is responsible for the cost of the equipment. So when we replace Merlin, that equipment cost will fall on our shoulders.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payne, yes, the DOJ has been working with the counties and basically has let us know that, a while ago they They quit covering the cost of paper and cartridges, and they actually quit covering some of the replacement of our equipment as it is. But when we go over to cars, it's going to be a system that they can go out to the internet to access versus going through the state networking. I'm not exactly sure how it all works, but with that, they're going to give us all of the computers, monitors, whatever printers that are theirs, they're going to be giving us all of those things. And it will be our responsibility from then on to replace those equipments or also call in a repairman when something goes wrong. Right now, it's kind of a mix between our county IT department and the state IT department that's helping us with computer or printer issues. So once this turnover comes, and it will happen on St. Patty's Day in 2025, so that's March 17th, we will then have all that equipment, the printers, and then it'll be up to our IT department to assist us with any problems. And of course, there could be some software costs that we're also seeing with that. I'll go into deeper depth with that stuff when we get into the motor vehicle budget, but that will be affecting my budget also.
So thank you for your response. So we get this brand new program and then we get all the Fred Flintstone equipment to run it on?
That is a little bit uncertain at this point in time. With the new system, we have to have scanners. So from my understanding, the state's going to pay for the scanners. I believe they're going to be new. There's been rumors that we would be getting refurbished computers, but then we've also been told we're getting new computers. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to get there. And then they did tell us that, of course, for sure, the printers are for sure our responsibility. I'm not sure what is going to be our responsibility. And I know the other counties are being very cautious of this because when we did like our remodel before, we ended up having to pay for the state cable to make the state computers work. And it's still a state cable paid with county funds. So we're not sure what's going to happen. So my budget is expecting to have to pay for that equipment or replace that equipment soon. I'm just not comfortable with not budgeting for it and then it being a surprise.
Thank you. Yes,
Right.
I think we all feel that way.
Yeah, yeah. Commissioner Payne, I had the kind of the same question twirling around in my head. I guess, and try to find some silver lining in this thing or a glass half full type of view of it, if possible. What happens now on occasion when the state equipment goes down and it is the parts and pieces that they don't allow us to touch or to look at or to mess with, our IT department kind of has their hands tied. So in this scenario, it sounds like after everything's turned over to us, it's our responsibility. So likely if something goes wrong with the monitor or with the printer or something, then our IT people can respond and hopefully get you back up and running more quickly than waiting for the state to respond. Is that maybe a silver lining that could happen in this scenario?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and commissioners, I think this is, even though it's going to cost the county more and be a burden to us that way,
Yeah.
it might be a blessing in some sorts because in the past, when I first started as a treasurer, clerk and recorder, our motor vehicle department, none of the employees could even get onto the county website because of the state permissions. They were restricted from a lot of things. There's still things that they could use for their job, but they can't because the state won't allow them those accesses. So if it's under the county, at least then we can have everything
Right.
centrally located and we don't have the fight between the two IT departments saying, this isn't allowed through our policy, but it may be allowed through a different policy. So it might be better in the long run that it's county equipment, county employees.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see.
Yeah.
There'll be some
Laugh.
some pains and maybe some blessings. But
Glass half full, as you said. Thank you.
Right.
any other questions yet so far? Okay. So we're moving into the treasurer elections.
Elections, yes. So our personnel, I did ask for an increase of $8,000 for the presidential general election. Law requires counting must be continuous during the election. Our key staff is the ones that do get the overtime. It's our normal staff members. And it does take a lot of extra hours. We work weekends downstairs, work nights. So you just don't know. And I did ask for more because I think we're going to need that added amount to cover that. Our O&M, operation and maintenance. Office supplies, I've also asked for an increase of $4,350 for security related items, including ballot sleeves and envelopes, polling place supplies, and habit grant security seals. So throughout my budget for my elections department, I do have some have a grant, but some of our have a grant is also a match that we would have to do, or possibly something that isn't covered through the have a grant. The have a grant only covers federal, so we do have school and city elections, so a portion would have to be completely county funds.
Mr. Chair. Sorry to interrupt
Please.
you, Amy.
Yes.
I just wanted to jump in, commissioners, and just suggest a couple of things to you. I think this is probably clear, but within your budget books that you've received from Frank and Misty, Amy is going through, and you're going to see this throughout all your presentations all day today, and then as we get into the budgets on Thursday. So we're speaking to the section called elections. And again, this is probably clear to all of you, but I just want to make sure. So if you take a look in your tab, it's the very last tab in your budget book. And if you go to page 3 of 10 in your tabs, it's summary. That's where the summary for elections is. That Amy's going over the details. It's just great information, but that's where you can find this. And the way the budgets have been laid out for you, just like we've done in past years, is we're showing you fiscal year 22, fiscal year 23, fiscal year 24, and what's being requested for fiscal year 25. So again, without belaboring it, commissioners, we're on elections right now. Amy's taking you through that, and you can see the summation on page 3 of 10, where you can see it's bolded, where it says Elections Department fiscal year proposed budget. And on the far right column, about a third of the way down the page, that's where you see the summary of what's being presented to you today. So you'll see similar formats for all of the different budgets that you're going to be seeing today and then on Thursday as well. Oh, thank you very much, Amy. Amy's putting it up there on the screen for us. So this just gives you, I think, a very good idea of the type of budget that we're talking about for elections. And of course, these sessions today and then Thursday are intended, commissioners, for you, presentations to you, for your questions, for us to go through as we prepare our budgets in the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it. Amy, go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, and thank you, Roger. And if you would like, we'll go through this a little bit differently. I appreciate the suggestion. So I do have the now page 3 of 10 on the screen here, so you can see where we're coming from and our individual amounts that are affecting the budget the most. As you can see in the 24 budget, I had $1,044,332 for the total budget in the elections department. And over as the proposed, I have the $1,103,776. Now you'll see I have 2 columns, column P and Q, that are the proposed budgets. The reason I did that is our system takes each account and has it by a total, but then there's also a breakdown in those accounts. And when you look at column J on row 43 and 44, actually 42, 43, and 44, that same account number is listed. And I don't know if you can see that, but
We don't have
let me,
the
yeah,
numbers
sorry,
or
I'm
the
looking at this.
letters.
Let me go over there. That is the office machines. You'll see I have 3
you-
lines where the office machines are.
And just so for your, if you're,
And it's
I think the mouse, you can point with your mouse as well.
Good. Let me,
Um,
sorry.
yeah,
Let's get that. Good. Okay, so over here, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So 42, 43, and 44, those are all the same.
And we don't have numbers, so you have to use.
Right. There. Can you see that?
Yep.
So those are all the same account. So it's listed on there 3 times.
Okay.
And so on this column here, I have the summary of the amount, and over here is a breakdown of what that total would be. So that's why you have 2 different columns there at the end. And I just wanted to kind of explain that. It was a little bit harder to get the totals to work out correctly without actually having the 2 columns. And I could have hid this column, but it did. Then it shows the account 3 times with 0 amounts, and it looked a little bit weird. So I didn't want to deal with it that way. So just so you know, when we're looking at this, there is a difference there. So that is why the 2 columns at the bottom here are the exact same, as one's a summary and one's a detail.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue on here with our elections. I'm just gonna see if it, okay, perfect. With our elections, also we have minor equipment increase of $3,700 for safe, secure elections. Also, we have a little bit of match and non-federal portion for the HAVA grant. We are also upping the cost, or the cost has upped because of the minimum wage increase. We normally pay our election judges just a little bit over minimum wage. And because of the increase, we have upped their wages a little bit. I have an increase in contracted services for $2,620 for election security, which is partially funded by the HAVA grant, and increase in travel of $3,900. Our clerk and recorder, we have a clerk and recorder convention, and then we have election administration training. And we feel it'll be very useful for some of our staff to go to that training. They usually devote 1 day to elections on our clerk and recorder training. So we're hoping to get them to come along this year.
Okay.
So that is our elections department budget. Do you have any questions for me, Mr. Chair or commissioners?
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners, at this time? Okay, go ahead.
All right, we'll continue on. I'm going to move the screen here, and we'll just go ahead and go down. We're going to look at the records department budget. I'm going to go down to the bottom here. And you'll see that last year our budget was $333,209. This year I'm asking for $346,288. Part of that increase is from, actually would be normally from the 3.5% COLA, but this year we're saving a little bit of money on our personnel costs due to staff turnover and our staff starting at a different level in the matrix. Our O&M, we have an increase of office supplies due to the state of Montana no longer covering birth and death certificate paper. So that'll be the county's expense, plus the vital records is turning people to the county instead of to the state. So we'll be processing more of those. We've also asked for an increase in travel due to the rising cost of lodging and traveling. We have book restoration happening in Missoula also that we have to go back and forth for. We have an increase of $7,000 for contracted services for surveying, shredding, and digitization for historical record upload to our current software. So currently our records are being digitized, but we can also get those uploaded into our system so they're available for use. And then increase of $1,250 for printing costs. We're going to order our envelopes. This year, we try to order them in bulk and have them for a couple years at a time. So as you can see, we have about a $13,000 increase in that budget. We try to keep things as tight as we can. Do you have any questions there for me, Mr. Chair or commissioners?
I do not. Any questions? Okay.
All right. And we'll go ahead and we'll go down to the next budget here. We'll look at our property tax or our real estate department. And that budget has also increased. We had a $495,211 in fiscal year 24. We're looking for $553,286. A lot of that increase in this one is going to be in personnel costs. We up here on the top here, oops, You can see we went from 284,000 to 326,000. There's been a change in legislation. And we are to allow 7 payments per year for property taxes instead of the 2. So we are expecting an increase of our overtime for our current staff. Taxpayers would have a contract with the county. So each of those contracts obviously will be taking more time. Also, we upped our temporary salary increase by $27,000 to allow 2 temps during our 2 busy tax seasons, which would be your November to mid-December, your May to mid-June, and then also a little extra for the other months, which would be December through April, that we'd have, part-time staff in to account for those extra 7 payments, extra 5 out of the 7. We have an O&M increase of $1,000 for our miscellaneous supplies due to the need of contracts and other miscellaneous costs. We decreased our minor equipment by $2,250, and we increased our travel by $500 due to rising cost of lodging. Mr. Chair, any commissioners, any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Okay.
All right, I'll keep going. Our next budget should be our motor vehicle department. So I'll scroll down to there. And again, our motor vehicle department is being affected by the state of Montana's changing of the software. Let me just scroll down. It's not working for me here. All right, so looking at our proposed budget, last year, our budget was 1.3 million. This year, I'm asking for 1.4 million. So we're going to go through that a little bit here. So part of that is we have a large number of employees in this office. So part of that increase you are seeing is salaries. And then the other part of that is the O&M. So we'll just keep going through all of that. Okay, so on our O&M, our minor equipment, we've increased by $2,100 due to CARS, the new motor vehicle system. We've increased our printing costs. We would like to purchase envelopes by $1,050. Machinery repair and maintenance. Because DOJ is no longer providing support of the equipment, we're looking at printer contracts that include the maintenance. And due to the high volume of printing that we do at the 8 windows plus in the back for all of the lien holders and military, and also dealing with sending the paperwork to the state, I've asked for an increase of $25,500. I have an increase in travel of $6,000 to allow several of our staff members to attend training for the new software. I'm not sure where that training is going to be located at this point, but I did cite on caution thinking it would be out of town. I also increased our contracted services by $5,000. We bring in temporary help in the evenings to help with our backlog of title work. And that's to process and go through what the 8 windows are creating for work before we actually send that information off to the state. Part of our increase also is software. You'll see here a software increase happened. If we inherit computers from the state of Montana, the licensing may or not be transferable because of how licensing works. So talking to our county IT department, we did caution on the side of possibly having to purchase those softwares to make those computers run, Windows, Word, Excel, those types of things. Do you have any questions for me, Mr. Chairman or commissioners?
Thank you. I guess, there's a little bit of unknown in here. You're budgeting to make sure that you don't get surprised and that none of us get surprised. But it is possible there could be some savings found in that if state covers something that you didn't think they were going to cover, or if something, example, the trainings in Helena versus in Billings, I mean, that would help a lot. So there's some possible savings there, but you're proposing a budget not assuming anything, making sure that you're covered so you don't have any surprises.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I think I estimated about $46,000 extra in equipment if I had to replace it. At one point, they told us with the new software, they weren't sure what was compatible and if our computers would be compatible. They've suggested certain printers, certain scanners. And again, if they're covering the scanners, I'm not sure why they're telling us which ones we need. So just trying to be very cautious and make sure that we're going to have enough money to run if they don't cover those costs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right,
Okay.
we're going to go ahead and go down to our accounting department's budget. And right there. So last year we had 777,000. This year we're asking for 1,065,000. And our accounting did get affected by, of course, the salary increase and the O&M. We have credit card fees. So the large amount of this salary or the budget increase is this $238,250. This is due to a requirement to record revenue and expenses of credit card fees paid by customers. So per state of Montana, we're only allowed to, and I would say state of Montana, I mean the MCA's Montana law. We're only allowed to charge the customers up to a certain percentage, but they also are saying that we need to take that percentage or that amount that the credit card fees are, and they need to be receipted into our system and basically paid back out to the vendor. Because of technology, things don't really quite work that way. Usually the vendor kind of takes care of tracking all that stuff. So basically we need to be able to show that expense happened and show the revenue coming in. My budget doesn't really show any revenues. You know, as we were going through, you don't see that because I'm in the general fund, but that 238,000 increase would also be revenue and expense. So it would net itself out. It's just a matter of saying that that's what we charged our customers or what our customers were charged through the credit card company to process their payments that they choose to pay with a credit card.
So instead of that being something that you and your staff did not have to deal with, and the credit card company took that off the top, took it away. Now it has to go
Right.
through your system as a revenue and then an expense.
Yes.
So you're not taking in or spending any more. You're just recording that
Just recording it.
transaction.
Just making sure that transaction is accounted for properly. And then also we have minor equipment increase of $3,750 for scanners. That's going to be with our new system instead of as much paper as we deal with in this day and age. We're a little bit behind on that. We're trying to get everything electronic. I did do a travel increase of $2,000 to get several staff members to attend training for the new finance system and then GFOA training, Government Financial Officers Association training. We usually send a couple of our accountants to that. They try to go, one goes 1 year, one goes the other. But that's usually what that is. And then we have contracted service increase of $1,700 for miscellaneous. We have additional fuel costs that we're seeing with our armored car services and things like that. And that basically covers it for our accounting department. Do you have any questions, Mr. Chair or Commissioners?
Questions, anybody? Okay,
Okay,
doesn't look like it.
great. All right, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, our next budget is for our records preservation budget. Looking at our cash flows, now this is not in the general fund, so looking at our cash flows, although Frank is so nice to budget my revenues for me, so I just have the expenses here. But we did see our revenues go down last year, so we did not budget to transfer for our capital improvement plan. We're not going to budget that, so you'll see the main part of the decrease in our budget is from not budgeting for that CIP transfer. We also had decreased our minor equipment by $500. We did increase our microfilm by $200, and we decreased our office machinery by $3,500. So most of our budget here, we did decrease trying to save and trying to get that cash balance in that fund back up. And that is the rest of my budget. If you have any questions on me, I'd be happy to answer.
How about questions, commissioners? Mr. Baltz?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, Ms. Reeves. So commissioners, over the past couple of years, we've had a chance to work on the space needs in this building and just thinking big picture about the department and the operations. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of construction. But in recent weeks, I know we've talked a little bit about, are we thinking ahead a little bit to what the space needs might need to be for this operation? And in specifically, it's been a few weeks ago, but I remember we had a conversation about, do you have enough space right now? And commissioners, I'm sure you know that we added windows down there. And also for, our citizens, we also have a camera that is set up where people can look at a real time of how many people are waiting for services on the first floor here of the city county building. But I don't want to speak for you, but when we talked a little bit about this, were you feeling like you have enough space to meet your needs for right now for the commissioner's information?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and thank you, Roger. I think our motor vehicle department, they're packed in there pretty good. I mean, it is tight. I can say, we worked very hard with the commissioners to get that motor vehicle area, to where we could service our customers and have more windows. And due to staffing, sometimes not all windows are open. We usually we try for at least 6 windows for sure. But we are down staff members. We have openings for people who want to apply. So, as soon as we get fully staffed, we really want to have all those 8 windows open, but it's been very difficult at this time. But I can say we really addressed the motor vehicle area, which was great. But I'm also seeing an upturn in our elections department this year with having a school election running at the same time as a federal primary election. It's been extremely difficult to find space. We've had to divide our groups in half. We've had to basically split ballots, have them in the basement, have them on the first floor, have them in a different room. It's been very difficult to track everything and to track what employees doing what and trying to move them. I feel we're losing valuable time that they could be working, just trying to move them into a different area and use makeshift areas to do what we need to do. I do think our election area is needing, to grow eventually. We are going to have to look at that, and we definitely have to figure out something for the next election in 2026 because we're going to run into the same problem. I've had staff working weekends. We've worked till midnight some nights here at the office, so it's just a matter of finding the space. And I'm not sure what the answer is, and it's not real practical for us to take ballots to another building and try to work, staff over there. So that's one of the biggest problems we have right now. And plus we had the school ballots and the primary ballots that we wanted to keep separate and not work in the same rooms. So the space for the elections has been very challenging.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just throw out another item, just thinking about the operation. Isn't there some scanning that's going on right now of records? Are they still set up over in the Law and Justice Center building in the basement over there? Commissioners, I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and Roger, thank you about that. We do have that records digitization project going on. We were able to get a grant for that, which is very nice. And they are recording all of those historic books that we have downstairs, the whole walls. If you walk in, pretty much the whole room's covered with books along the walls. So those are getting digitized. We had a lot of public that does come in and look at those. Those books are pretty high up on this, on the walls. We just don't have the space. And when they pull them down, sometimes they drop them, a page rips, the binding of the books aren't holding up. So we're trying to keep those records preserved. And then also, we have people that have subscriptions and can get onto our system to look at those electronically. And that's a little bit of my budget. I had asked to take what they're imaging now and get it up into our system to allow them to see that electronically from a distance and not necessarily, hopefully not have to be in our office to do that.
Thank you. Other questions? I made this suggestion at one time and I'll just put it out there. It's for you guys to figure out, but I think that space that the building manager possesses right now in the corner downstairs on that first floor could be utilized on your behalf in some way, shape, or form, moving things around and just more space, and they could move to the second floor, which I think they're open to doing that. So that might be something to continue to look into, and nothing about it now, but that's it.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I did also want to mention our property tax department with the new legislation where they are able to accept 7 payments a year versus 3 or 2, excuse me. I have 3 staff that fit in our property tax department. I really don't have room to put temporary employees. At this point, we're hoping to share the election space during that time, but unfortunately, elections and property tax run at the exact same time, May and November every year. So it does give us a little bit of a problem. So we're going to have to figure out where to put those people. But if the 7 payments do take off, I think we are going to run into a problem in years to come for our property tax department too, to have enough space for employees to be able to help our public.
All right, well, hopefully we'll keep looking at it. Frank?
Amy,
Cornwell.
so just to be clear, do you think the city manager or the buildings manager office, and then I think there's another office down there that's actually right next to.
Is your mic on?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
We just can't hear you.
There's another office right next to the motor vehicle. I think that's Bridget Johnstone's office. So there's 2 offices that would potentially be available if they came up to the second
Yeah.
floor. Would those, I guess for me, would those give you the room that you need to be able to use between elections and your temporary staff on the real estate, property tax collections? Do you think that would give you an advantage moving forward, long-term wise?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and thank you, Frank. Actually, for a plan to move forward, the best plan that I can see moving forward is to move my records department out of that area and extend elections into that area and have both counters for property tax customers to come in and meet with our property tax department. That is probably the cleanest way of doing it. We would still run into sometimes when we don't have enough space for elections, because if you guys, I believe we talked about, and I toured both of you guys or all of you to see our elections in process. Andy, when he did his tour, we actually had both school and primary going at the same time. So he was able to see we were using space behind the motor vehicle area. We were using space in the basement. We had, the office was hopping. Basically, we just have people everywhere. It seemed like at this time, if we had that area where records was, we could have more of our staff, our election staff right there, which would be really nice. They wouldn't have to come up and down the stairs asking questions or, grabbing, supplies, because it would all be in one area. The elections is really, it takes up a lot of room, whether it's just storing all the polling place supplies or, just the amount of people that we actually have to have. At times we have 30 or so temps working for us. So it just is a lot of people to put in a small area. I don't know what the answer is. I do know Missoula has a very nice facility they share with their DES department. So it's basically a command center in case of an emergency. It's like a warehouse, basically. Half is sealed off for, keeping things secure and safe and stored. And then the other half is basically a huge conference room that they use. And again, they share it with their it's not search and rescue, but it's their DES coordinator. The only thing I don't know is what would happen if there was an emergency while there was an election happening.
Yeah,
That would
right.
probably cause a little bit of a problem.
Right. So I for one, and these folks can speak for themselves, but I would surely support you, Roger, Mr. Burton, and Mr. Cornwell working together to uh, investigate and bring forth a plan for space allocation in this building, at least for now. I mean, someday we might have to look at something more broad, but there is, if we rearrange, there is potential for providing you more space down there for your operations in some combination. So
Yeah.
I would support working together with these guys to do that and, you know, whatever we have to do. I'm sure that the others have their view, but we've been struggling with it for a while. Uh, I think that floor, essentially, those operations that you provide down there are uh, the core of what we do, some of the core
Right.
of what we do and the priority. So that's where I am. Anyway,
If I might suggest, rather than saying, by golly, we're gonna take over those offices, you might say, you might approach it with, golly, we really need more space. This is what we think would work. What do you think would work to make it? So maybe the city has ideas on other areas that could be taken care of. Part of, and I'm sure you guys know all this, the planning department recently has been moved out of part of the second floor to make room for the city attorney's growth. So they are sort of, I'm thinking about the camel's nose under the tent, moving in. And so this needs to be discussed. I'm sure they have room issues also, but
yeah, and I should have prefaced with that because you kind of jumped over that step, but at the building board meeting, we've already been discussing this with the city of Helena.
oh,
And
good.
that's why, you know, jumping forward and saying the city managers or the building manager's space down there, he's already said he'd be willing, they'd be willing to negotiate or work on different space or moving to the second floor potentially and all that kind of stuff. So we've kind of started those conversations. That's why I was pushing it toward Mr. Baltz, because he and Mr. Burton have already been some level of engagement about, hey, how could we reallocate space in this building to make it work more efficiently for our departments and offices. So that's why. But I didn't tell you that. So sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I did want to mention too, is when the health department was moving out of the second floor, that big room, when you get up the first elevator, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's a big area. I was actually excited thinking that area was one that was opening up, thinking I might be able to move my records department there because of all the books and the microfilm machines and everything they have to have. But that was one of the thoughts I had, and unfortunately they aren't going anywhere. But the big part we have with our property taxpayers is when you get one door in and one door out, it's hard for them to get in and out. And you know, if you have anybody that's ADA, it's going to be a problem. So I did look at the building manager's room, which is at the front of the building and towards the south. And that just doesn't have like an in and an out door. And that's one of the biggest problems I have for like our property tax department is having a flow of customers. And that's why I was visioning, you know, room 113, where it has both doors where they could come in and go out and you'd have the two counters. And the workflow, I think the best is to move the records out and unfortunately, it's just a large space.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to solve it here, nor do we need to. But that space is more space, and potentially for the overall operation. Looking at, I mean, you can look at all different kinds of moves, whether it's records or accounting or elections or whatever, however it can help. But I think there might be a team of brains that can work on that and figure out how space could be reallocated down there to benefit you and your operation. So we'll just leave it at that maybe for now. Any other questions about the budget, commissioners?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you
Thank you.
running up. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Frank or Roger, any further discussion or preamble you want to have for our next group?
No, thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Well, as Clerk and Recorder Reeves is moving out, our Public Works folks are going to be moving in for the next presentation here. Welcome. So this item is the Public Works Administration, Special Districts, and Noxious Weeds Mosquito Districts. We're going to focus on first, right? I believe.
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, maybe I could just chime in while we're getting prepared here. You've got your budget books, you've got your tab that
Yep.
says Public Works, and similar process. If you turn to, it looks like page 19, you'll see the summation of
Yep.
administration. I don't know if Jenny and Audra have that in front of them, but that's what you have.
Betcha.
Good morning, Commissioner, Chairman, and Commissioners. This morning, we're here, like Roger has indicated, for the Department of Public Works budget presentation. So the portion of the Public Works budgets that we'll be talking about today are Public Works Administration, Special Districts Administration, Noxious Weed Control Division, and Mosquito Control Districts. For the record, my name is Jenny Chambers. I'm Lewis Clark County Public Works Director, and I'll be supported by my staff today that are impacted by these budget discussions. With me are Audra Zackrell, the Assistant Public Works Director, and my Finance Coordinator. Also Jessica Makis, our Special Districts Coordinator, Christian Leonard, our Noxious Weed and Mosquito Control District Manager, and also Dan Carlin, our County Engineer. This is just part, like I indicated, of the Public Works Department. You'll have other presentations from Public Works, another one this afternoon, and more again on Thursday scheduled. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Audra Zackrell to go through the details of the budget, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have in regards to the budget proposal. Thank you.
And thanks for jumping in a little early. I know we're a tiny bit ahead of schedule, but that's okay.
No problem. That's great. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Audra Zackrell, Assistant Director of Public Works. And as Jenny mentioned, we have about 5 budgets to review this morning over the next hour. For each of those budgets, I will only comment on significant differences from the prior year. Each of the personnel budgets include a 3.5% matrix adjustment, step increases, longevity, and the health insurance premium increase of $25 per month per employee. Also, you will see or hear me say CIP multiple times. CIP stands for Capital Improvement Plan. You will also hear me say O&M throughout our budget presentation. That stands for Operations and Maintenance portion of each of the budgets. We will begin with the Public Works Administration budget. This division oversees the administrative and financial operations of all the programs, services, and projects within Lewis and Clark County Public Works Department. The primary source of revenue for the Public Works Administration is the general fund. However, the majority of this budget is recovered with an administrative fee that's allocated to all our programs and services based on the level of support, time, and effort that we provide those divisions. In fiscal year 25, approximately 60% of our budget will be reimbursed, totaling approximately $380,584. The divisions that don't pay because they're general fund or for other reasons would include the Bridge Fund, the Noxious Weed Fund, the 222 and 310 buildings, the RIDs, the Mosquito districts, the Augusta Solid Waste District, and we currently have the Fairgrounds Custer Henderson project happening that takes some of our time that also is not paying into our administrative fee. Our O&M budget, our operations and maintenance budget, is seeing a 4% decrease from fiscal year 24. So the O&M does not include the personnel numbers. Minor equipment this year will include a standing desk and chair for $1,000. We're seeing a 15% increase in utility costs due to electric increase, and we are no longer self-hauling our garbage on a weekly basis. That's an increase of about $1,945 in this budget. Our computer repair and maintenance, we're adding a Blue Beam Complete program for $400. Our travel and training line item includes the Government Finance Officers Association Conference, which is out of state. For the registration and the travel expense, that comes to $3,200. Other contracted services includes historical record scanning at about $10,000. In fiscal year 25, we're increasing our capital contribution by $17,500 from $32,500 to $50,000. We want to begin saving for the phase 2 of our complex facility master plan implementation. You'll be hearing about that quite a bit throughout each of our budget presentations. Purchases in fiscal year 25 include replacing the complex camera system. That's a cost share with all the divisions in our complex. The Public Works admin portion is $22,400. And again, you'll see the administrative office trailer roof replacement if needed, $17,240. That's what I have for Public Works Administration. Are there any questions concerning this budget before we move on to the next budget?
Looks like we're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So our next budget that I would like to present is the Special Districts Program. The Special Districts Program is responsible for providing a way for residents to finance, construct, and maintain improvements of public infrastructure outside the limits of incorporated cities and towns. Special districts support public infrastructure such as roads, parks, lighting, water, sewage, and fire suppression systems. The program is managed pursuant to special districts provisions in Title VII of the Montana Code annotated. 3 FTEs staff this program and provide administration and coordination of services within special districts, including district creation, administration, budgeting, and construction project management. The primary source of revenue for this fund is the general fund. Operations and maintenance has increased 9.6% from fiscal year 24. Minor equipment is budgeted at $2,475. It includes an electronic slope level, an ergonomic mouse and keyboard, and unanticipated and new employee needs at $1,875. We have a retirement, so we are planning for some unanticipated new employee needs this next year. We've added $1,100 for TaxWise licensing. That's the CSA Tyler that the Special Districts Program uses to get their tax information for their program. Repair and maintenance includes $1,200 for some new pickup tires. Travel and training includes $8,675 for an asphalt maintenance out of state, and that portion is $3,700 of the total. For capital, our contribution to the oh,
Sorry.
Before,
sorry, I'm just zooming
Thank you.
through.
Audra, when I'm, what in the heck do you mean by includes asphalt maintenance out of state? Are we maintaining asphalt out of state or what the heck does that mean?
Thank you for that question. Chairman, Commissioners, asphalt maintenance, that is a training program that we send our employees to on asphalt, how to maintain asphalt.
Of course, I mean,
Yeah.
it makes absolute sense now that you put it that way.
And we have several retirements coming up, and so we need to educate our staff on some of these things that we're losing that skill.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I'll move on to capital. The contribution to the CIP for this budget has increased from 10,000 to 100,000 to begin saving for the phase 2 of the complex facility master plan implementation, and no purchases are budgeted. Are there any questions on this piece of the budget? This is a quite large increase.
There might be some curiosity about how do you accomplish that from that large of a leap in one budget cycle?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that question. So you noticed in our Public Works Administration budget that we budgeted a small increase in our CIP contribution. And that's because Public Works Administration has been saving for quite some time for some kind of change in our complex. We didn't know if it was a relocation or, and recently we completed a master plan that, that told us that we could stay in our current location for the future if we made some changes to the buildings and the traffic flow to make it more efficient for our complex. And so the Special Districts Program is a relatively new program down at Public Works. Their CIP has only been in existence for a few years. And we put together a 5-year plan that in 5 years, we would like to move forward with our phase 2 of our master plan. And to do that, we would need to find funding sources for that. And this is the one way that we were able to find the funding is by increasing our CIP contribution. Jenny, did you have something you wanted to add concerning that?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, as you recall, Public Works provided an update on the Public Works Master Plan that we completed in February of 2023. We've looked hard about ways to evaluate options for finding funding in order to implement that master plan. We're currently in the phase 1 of that master plan implementation, which thanks to your support of the ARPA dollars to move our magnesium chloride tanks and our fuel island to the other location off of Benton, that will then allow room in the future for development of and building of a Public Works admin building, which would house all of Public Works staff, including the Special Districts Program, the Noxious Weed District, and some of our other staff for office locations, and also maybe a conference room, bathroom facilities, showers for our noxious weed sprayers, and functions that we need to have long-term. It would be all in one location. We'd have a better access for visitors that came into the complex. It would help with site security and evaluation. In order to do that, we have to save for some money. You could potentially post a bond levy. You could also look for a loan. But we also just looking at long-term, if we can save for 5 years, maybe we'd have enough funding in order to implement that without some of those other funding options in place. So it's just a holistic look of what we can do in the future to move forward with the phase 2 of the next phase of the master plan implementation.
Thank you very much. It's a good strategy, I think, and hopefully will help us accomplish our goals. It's just as you're in that strong, hard saving mode, it's challenging as well to keep things going. So just wanted to touch on that. It's good. So Go ahead.
Are there any questions on this budget before we move on to the next? No? Okay, we'll move on to the Noxious Weed Control Division. This division and the Mosquito Control Divisions are responsible for the implementation of the county's weed management plan to manage plants that have been identified and designated as noxious, and to provide administration and oversight for the Helena Valley and Craig mosquito districts. The Noxious Weed Division has 4.45 FTEs that perform non-compliance activities, inspections on 5-year management plans, noxious weed management on county-owned properties, road rights-of-way, and works with municipalities and other government agencies to mitigate noxious weeds throughout Lewis and Clark County, and education and partnerships to increase awareness. The primary source of revenue is the general fund. Approximately 7.5% is recovered in fees charged for sprayer rentals, hydroseeding, and contracts for spraying on MDT, city, federal lands, et cetera. This budget has been recommended by the Noxious Weed Board from their April 18th meeting. The O&M portion of the budget has seen a 4.5% decrease from fiscal year 24. Minor equipment is budgeted at $4,975 and includes computer battery backups and monitors, 50% of a forklift that will be a cost share with their shop, and unanticipated equipment replacements at $1,500. We've increased the fuel line item from $15,000 to $16,500. We've added a hydroseed reimbursable line item of $5,000. This line item was needed for the hydroseed piece of equipment that was purchased a year ago. And this line item will be used to purchase materials that will be used in the hydroseeder, but will be reimbursed back. This is one mechanism we can use to keep track of the activity on the hydroseeder. This budget will see a 26% increase in utility costs, again, due to electric and no longer self-hauling the weekly garbage. That's about a $3,331 increase.
Excuse me,
Yes.
might I ask, so who's hauling the garbage if we're not doing it?
Through the interlocal agreement, the city of Helena is able to pick up our garbage.
So when you're saying our garbage, this is for the Public Works complex only.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yes. Moving on to education awareness, there's an increase of $1,500 to $4,000 for radio advertisements. Community projects will remain the same in fiscal year 25. That includes the countywide cost share program at $10,000, the Jim Darcy and East Helena Middle School's Ag Days at $500, the Sun River Watershed Group at $500, and the Rocky Mountain Front at $500. There are no special buildings repair and maintenance projects planned in fiscal year 25. For capital, the contribution to the CIP increases to $150,000 from $35,000, again, to begin saving for phase 2 of the master plan implementation. Purchases from the noxious weed CIP include the replacement of a pickup, $68,960, replacing the building heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, $13,440, and replacing the complex camera system, $22,400. That's a cost share with the divisions in the complex. Are there any questions on the Noxious Weed Control Division budget?
Questions? Good to go. The next.
Good to go. Okay. The next budget we'll look at is the Noxious Weed Trust Fund. This budget mainly is the fund that we put our grants for the Noxious Weed Division through. so that we can keep track of our grants. This fund is specifically for grant management and reporting. The Special County Reservation Grant is a recurring grant every year. Purchases include any unanticipated item throughout fiscal year 25 that's voted on by a majority of the Noxious Weed Board. That amount will not exceed $47,000. We have the Montana Department of Transportation Weed Grant. Purchases include any unanticipated item through fiscal year 25 voted on by the majority. And that amount will not exceed $7,000. That's also an annual recurring grant. We have 3 other grants that we're aware of at budgeting time. The USDA Forest Service Beaver Creek Restoration Project. That's an ongoing program. We have the USDA Forest Service Roads and Rangeland. That's also ongoing through 2028. And then we have the Noxious Weed Trust Fund Landers Fork Alice Creek, which was just awarded here recently, $17,176. Are there any questions on the Noxious Weed Trust Fund program?
Commissioner.
I am always impressed with your ability to keep the numbers balanced. So it jumps out at me when I see on the USDA Forest Service Beaver Creek Restoration Project, the amount is 30,000 and the balance is 24,644. Everything else is, I mean, all your other numbers are slung the other way. Why do we have a shortfall in this one?
Thank you for that question, Chairman, Commissioners. There's no shortfall. The number in the amount column is the amount that was awarded, the original amount that was awarded. The amount in the balance column is how much that is remaining to be drawn down as activity occurs.
So in that case, we have used about $6,000 of it.
That's it. Yep.
So
Last fiscal year.
for the Special County Reservation Grant, we have a grant of 7,500 and a balance of 47,000. I don't understand. What?
Thank you for that question. I love your questions, Commissioner Payne. Chairman, Commissioners, this is a recurring grant. Each year we get $7,500. That doesn't mean we're going to spend $7,500 each year. So from the past few years, they haven't spent nearly $7,500 each year. So we have a remaining balance of those funds of $47,158. Sometimes the board will decide to spend it on a large item, and sometimes they don't have anything in mind, and so they'll just let that balance
Build up.
build up. Yes, thank you.
There's Christian over there. That's true, right?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payne, if you recall, sometimes during the monthly Noxious Weed District board meetings
Yes.
that you attend, we oftentimes talk about educational materials or promotional activities like at the home show. Those are some of the funds that they use to dedicate for some of those educational purposes. At the last meeting we had last month, a lot of the conversations was around the radio ads and advertised radio ads
Yes.
discussion, where we talked about what the cost of that radio ad agreement was going to be, and that it was going to be supported by our Noxious Weed District budget, which you guys saw on the last slide, and that the board was going to allocate some of their special county reservation grant dollars towards those educational radio ad purchases. So while the money does get spent, it does not get spent at the rate that Audra indicated at the amount that they receive. And so it does build up year after year. And so a lot of those conversations at the Noxious Weed District is regarding those special county reservation grant funds.
You know, I've been doing this. I'm on my second year. You'd think I'd have a better understanding, but I appreciate you guys giving me some detail working on this. And maybe the people out there in TV land are wondering the same thing.
You're right. Thanks, Commissioner. Okay.
All right, if there are no other questions on Noxious Weed Trust Fund, we'll move on to the mosquito districts. The mosquito control districts are authorized to protect public health and prevent disease by controlling and exterminating mosquitoes. Revenue is primarily from an assessment on residents' property tax statements. The next two budgets are recommended by the Mosquito Control Board on April 9th. The first control district is the Craig District. There's a $5,000 increase in revenue needed in fiscal year 25. We will receive that from a mill increase. It'll bring our revenue from $19,000 to approximately $25,800. There's $21,894 in total expenses. $20,160 is a contract with JHS. $360 is for board member mileage reimbursements. $155 is budgeted for postage, and $1,219 is budgeted for a fixed administrative fee. For the Helena Valley, a $61,000 increase is needed in revenue from $235,000 to $310,270. That will be received from a mill increase. There are $230,184 in total expenses for this budget. There is a $228,550 contract with JHS. $155 is budgeted for postage, and $1,479 is budgeted for a fixed administrative fee. Are there any questions on the mosquito control budgets?
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. I haven't gotten any mosquito bites yet, so that's good.
Well, just to make sure everybody out in TV land understands what JHS is, it does not stand for January has snow. It stands for what is this contract? And what is a deliverable?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Payne. Chairman, Commissioners, JHS is the name of the company that does the helicopter spraying, or the aerial spraying, I should say. JHS Incorporated. I'm sure it stands for something, but
I think it's the initials of the operator, John Semple.
oh, okay. Thank you. And then your next question, I'm going to let Jenny take. Thank you.
This was an issue that came up while we were discussing with the board. And I think part of the problem was there was not a real understanding of what the heck a deliverable was.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payne, the Mosquito Control District contract was a formal solicitation this last year to solicit a contractors in order to do the mosquito abatement and services for the county for both the Craig Mosquito District and the Helena Valley Control District. It is a contract that is a county contract that's been legally reviewed. This last year, based upon the first year of that contract in place, is a 3-year contract term. We amended the contract to add some clarification and some information around deliverables. So upon receipt of an invoice, there's payments provided in a quarterly basis based upon the season of mosquito abatement and spraying, plus collection and some sampling data collection for the traps, that they provide a documentation of what they've done per that invoice requirements. That had not existed prior to this contract being in place. While the contract was written as a not to exceed amount, that allocation was appropriate in the past as well. What we're trying to do with the contractor and with the Mosquito Control District folks moving forward is just to get some more documentation and data around the amount of money being generated in revenue, what's been provided with those services, and mosquito abatement moving forward. So what I'd like to highlight is in the past, it was not something that was in violation of a contract or contract provisions beforehand. We're just trying to get a little bit more documentation moving forward to get that data to support invoices, and that we can get a better understanding of the revenue being provided and the services needed for mosquito abatement for both the Craig Mosquito District and the Helena Valley District.
Okay. What is a deliverable? Is it fuel for the airplane or helicopter? No, it's not. Is it the mosquito spray that kills mosquitoes. Is that included in this?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payne, there's certain scope of work requirements associated with the mosquito control district contract. It could be a number of site visits to go and evaluate the traps that they have to collect mosquitoes. He collects the mosquitoes. You can come back to the lab. You can analyze those. You can see what type of mosquitoes they're collecting and whether or not you're having impacts with West Nile virus or other activities. So it could be the number of site visits to those traps. It could also be the amount of pesticides or material used for the mosquito abatement services that are sprayed from the helicopter and the air and the aeration. So it could also be the number of complaints that he handled with customers or complaints that call in and his phone calls and his response back to those complaints. So it's hard to say what exactly the deliverable is going to be for that quarterly period, but it will follow the scope of work that we have in the contract. And then he'll report on those activities to support those invoice requirements moving forward. So it could be a combination of things that really help demonstrate the level of effort needed for mosquito abatement and services.
Thank you, Jenny. That I sat through that entire meeting, and my understanding of what a deliverable was not what you just explained. And I think we had a certain amount of controversy during that meeting because of a non-communication. It was that people wanted something different. They just had a different understanding of what we were talking about. So thank you for providing that.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Payne, I'd also like to add the Christian Leonard and I have also met with some of those district board members and talked through these steps as well. I think it's going to be a continual evolution based upon the program and where it's headed in the future with support and advice and a commitment from those board members. They are invaluable to get that input based upon those activities. So we'll just continue to partnership and work on the best way to administer these two programs within those districts.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? This time, any questions, comments from over here? Okay, first round for you folks. You're off the hook. I'll ask for public comment. There's no public in the room. I think it's all staff. Anything else that you folks want to contribute? Thank you all for your good work. And without any public comment, we'll move on. So thank you very much.
Even with all my questions, we couldn't keep them here for the full hour?
I guess not.
You guys could have helped.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very nice presentation. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Cornwell, I know that we have folks that aren't scheduled till 11, but maybe we can send them a message, let them know we're ahead of schedule.
Does
Please.
We can, yes, Chairman, we can absolutely do that. We'll reach out to the remaining ones on the schedule and see if we can get them in sooner than
Let them
later.
know we're moving.
what does this do with
Thank you.
our notice requirement? We have to give prior notice. Isn't time included in that? I think we've
well,
got some.
At this time, we'll take a short recess and return in a few minutes.
Well,
Thank you. Going to reconvene. Welcome, everyone. We are now going to have a presentation on the Forestvale Cemetery budget, which is still working in partnership with Public Works. Welcome. I'll let you introduce yourself for the record, and then we'll just talk about your budget a little bit, or you can do your budget presentation if you have some. We have the stuff that's in our books, but if there's anything other that you want to present, please feel free. So I'll turn it over to you. Green light. We need a green light.
It's green now. Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
I'm Wendell Richards. I'm the Forestvale Cemetery Supervisor. I do not have a electronic thumb drive for presentation this morning. But as far as the Forestvale Cemetery fiscal year 2025 budget proposal, on the first page there, you'll see the budget summary that you have. So as far as personnel, the 5% increase roughly, step increases, COLA, and health plan contribution increase. is what comprises that. And the
You have
operation.
them all, you have them all wrapped in together. They're in the 5%. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha. Go ahead.
Yes. So as far as operation and maintenance, our operation and maintenance expenses this year actually decreased by approximately 29%. A large portion of that though was due to, like I was speaking with Commissioner Payne earlier, we had put quite a bit of money in the O&M budget over the past couple of years due to that large storm that we had and the damage, in anticipation of some costly repairs and things like that. So we're pretty much closing in on the finishing up any repairs. So that's where a lot of that decrease came. And then another decrease was in anticipation for the Forestvale Cemetery expansion project. We had some money for professional services. We decided to roll that into the CIP this year though, instead of on that. So that's where the majority of that decrease comes from. There is a large change in the capital reserve fund. The total contribution has decreased. And that's mainly due to the fact that we were contributing quite a bit for that historic entrance renovation, which is due to be completed here shortly. And so some of that money, along with some other things we're putting in for the expansion project, which is really kind of the big one that it's going to take the next several years to complete and plan and things like that. So we added a couple other things as far as we're going to change some of the equipment. We have a backhoe there now. We're going to change that out and look forward to a mini excavator and a skid steer instead, just due to it's getting tighter in there and it'll allow a little bit smaller footprint for some of our work for that. And then like I said, the biggest one, the expansion plan is we're approximately going to be 35 acres. So we're currently in the process of procuring and putting out for bid a landscape architect to help us plan that. That'll be done in phases. The first phase, we're guessing or planning on being approximately about 7 to 8 acres of that 35.
Okay. And just for the public's sake that may not know much about your plan, in which direction? To the north, to the west, combination? Where?
Be the southwest.
Southwest.
Yep.
Okay, that corner.
Yep. So basically where Forestvale and McHugh Drive meet on that border,
Okay.
and kind of from the historic entrance back towards the shop to the
Right.
west there. There's approximately 35 acres around there, and that's what we're planning on. And the main reason for that is it's just closer to all the utilities, be a little bit more efficient, cost efficient to expand there than to the north.
Great, great. And I'll beat Commissioner Payne to it. She was talking to you a little bit about it prior to starting, but for those that don't know much about the big storm and what happened and all of that, so you lost quite a few trees, you had some other damage. Just kind of explain that a bit and how things are going and what you guys are up to there in terms of that response.
We still are dealing with some of the cleanup there. But yeah, we had this storm there in November of 22, I believe, lost approximately 40 trees. We still have a few now. It'll probably get up to 45 because I think we've had a couple of storms recently. I think that one weakened some root balls and things like that. So we have a few more to take down, but we largely were able to clean that up by ourselves. We're still chasing some breaks in the irrigation system that keep popping up as we fix others from that. But for the most part, we were able to save a lot of the trees. Our plan is to come to an agreement with a lumber mill or of some sort, get those milled and be able to kind of recycle a lot of those trees that are 100+ years old, recycle them into like a covered pavilion for our upcoming columbarium garden or something else like that. So it's just be able to keep it in the cemetery there. But the cemetery itself comprises approximately 150 acres, 48 of which is developed now, and then with this upcoming expansion plan of approximately 35. So,
Great. So probably a lot of new trees in the future.
yes, yes.
That's right. Good. Any other questions, commissioners? Any
You
questions
covered
about
it.
the budget? Okay. Any other comments or folks related? Okay. Looks like we have your your numbers here and we'll be working through it, and appreciate you coming, and thanks for responding so quickly to our change in schedule. We're a little ahead of schedule. So anything else you want to share with us about this year?
No, I'm good, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else? Financial staff? All right. No news is good news, as we say, and so we'll have some more opportunity to flesh these out further and have opportunity for public to engage. So thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Any public comment on this proposed budget? Any public comment? All right, hearing none, we will move on. We have our clerk of court with us today, Angie Sparks. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being able to jump at a moment's notice when we.
He was tall. All right, my name is Angie Sparks and I am the Clerk of District Court. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this is the 24-25 budget summary. There has been an increase in personnel, as you well know, 3.5% cost of living adjustment. I'm sorry, I don't have a thumb drive either. I'm kind of old and technology doesn't go well with me. So as you can see on the summary letter, I'm requesting the part-time scheduling clerk that we hired for the standing master, Judge Rowe, Hannah Rowe. I'm requesting her part-time scheduling clerk to be full-time. This is approximately a 0.5 position increase and estimated to be $66,000 increase for the year. Judge Rowe has taken on several hearings to help out the scheduling of the other 4 district court judges so that they can just focus on jury trials. So a lot of their smaller hearings, Judge Rowe has taken over. And Judge Rowe has also let Judge McMahon know that she would take over his behavioral health court. And by doing that, that frees them up to do more jury trials. And jury trials have almost doubled in the previous years. I've given you a few little numbers there. In 2021, we had 26 jury trials, 22, 31. And in 2023, we had 48 jury trials. That increase has been significant because Judge Rowe has taken a lot of the smaller stuff and opened up the 4 district court judges to do more jury trials. In that matter, it has increased our revenue almost somewhere around 60 to 70,000 to 120, 130,000. So that would help with the part-time becoming full-time. That's me looking at it.
So, yeah, and we're getting your perspective on this,
Yes.
whether anybody agrees or not. We're just trying to
Exactly.
understand your perspective. So what you're saying is that with the increased revenue and how Judge Rowe's docket has been able to free up the other courts to do more work, that there has been increased revenue that would essentially, in your view, offset the extra cost of the going from half-time to full-time.
Yes.
You're saying, okay. I just want to make sure we understood.
Yes.
Thank you. Keep going.
And with her docket increasing the way it has put more burden on Judge Rowe by herself because my scheduling clerk is only part-time. So I've attached a couple letters, the one from our quarterly meeting from Judge Rowe, and then she gave us an updated one explaining her demand kind of for a full-time scheduling clerk. That the need is there.
So, and the public doesn't have this in front of them if someone's watching
No.
today. So maybe just a quick explanation of that need, if you would.
Of her
From
letter.
your view that, well, either from the letter, for your view or her view.
Well, just
what's the need? Just the increased demand? She can't get to everything she needs to get to because
No. Okay, so everything has to be scheduled through my scheduling clerk. So anything that happens in court has to go through her. So she deals with a lot of attorneys, a lot of the DPHHS counsel to try to work with them and fit them in the schedule. That's really hard for Judge Hannah Rowe to do if she's hearing hearings or making decision on certain orders. So the scheduling clerk needs to be doing that. Plus she does the paper minutes for every hearing that's in that court. The scheduling clerk does. So there's not necessarily a court reporter, it's for the record. So the minute entries of just a brief summary of what happens in court. So if somebody calls and wants to know what happened or when a hearing date is, they can quickly look at that minute entry and know exactly when what happened that day in court and if there's a hearing set. Does that help?
Yeah, that does.
Okay.
I just wanted to have it explained, why we're considering it,
Okay.
why you want us to consider this.
Any questions on that one?
Any other questions on commissioners at this point?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go on to the next one.
Thank
The next one is just something I would like to do personally for our office is to have an incentive position. I recently had, well, I'll back up a little bit. I had an employee who was a lead worker in our office and she quit. And instead of rehiring a lead worker position, because nobody in my office was what's the word I'm thinking of? Qualified, qualified for that position. So I just hired another deputy clerk at a lower fee or, the hourly fee. Because I didn't feel anybody could fill that position at the time. Now I have several people that have been there for quite a while, but there's no place for them to really look forward to going to. So I'd like them to be able to say, hey, I want to work toward that lead worker position. So I'd like to, now that another employee has quit, I'd like to make that position back into the lead worker position to help the office out. Just when my office manager and I are both gone to meetings or, the convention once a year and our quarterly meetings and stuff, the lead worker would be the person in charge at that time to help train, to just help answer questions. If there's an unruly customer, they can help with that, de-escalate the problem. And with that, we estimated it's about a $7,000 increase in the employee fee. But I also feel like it would build morale in our office and give people something to look forward to.
So I guess I'll ask a question around that one.
Okay.
What you're essentially talking about is that there would be a growth factor. So if I start as a clerk, I can see that there are some leadership positions or staffing positions, take on more responsibility and have more higher pay that I could work toward. So you're looking at that. So some incentive positions within your ranks that not only can help you by taking on more responsibility, but it also gives people something to look forward to.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. In terms of process, I know you're presenting this to us, but has this been discussed with HR?
Yes.
Mr. Baltz?
Yes.
So those,
Well, not so, I don't think
but with HR?
with HR and with Frank.
Okay, and with Frank, okay. So in terms of affordability and those positions being essentially created within the system, all of that's doable? Assuming that we agreed with this,
Yes.
I'm just,
From what I understand, it's doable.
gotcha. All right, I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. Thank you, keep going.
That's I think pretty close. I know that the lead worker position, I had put in my letter, some of the duties they would have. Oops, wrong one. I know that I was talking about the lead position would help train and also help us in the front office when we're gone. They would be helping with records retention. I just really feel like with the increase in all the jury trials, my jury clerk right now is the one that's been helping with records retention. And she draws sometimes 3 and 4 jury trials a week. They all might not go, eventually they might plead out or whatever, but she's just so busy that it's really hard for me to give her extra duties to do. So that's part of why the lead worker, I would be putting more on them as well. Other than that, I think you can see in my budget that the office supplies have gone down over the years, and especially last year, and that's a lot to do with e-filing. I don't have to buy paper products anymore, or very much paper, and then I don't have to buy thousands of dollars worth of files to put paperwork in. So we're working really hard to get the cost down, all that. There's been an increase in the postage due to the postage going up, and also this year, because of the jury trial increase, I sent out 10,000 jury summonses this year instead of 7,000. by the time you get done with all the excusals and deceased and who's not in the jury pool anymore, some of the same people are getting drawn trial after trial. I've had some people just since September been on jury for five times now, just since September. And it's just the demand for more people is needed. So that's the increase in the postage. There's a slight increase in the subscriptions. That's because the lawyer desk reference books have gone up. And I think the telephone thing is just our contract with them.
Yeah.
Jury trials, on the 3rd page, that's civil jury trials. As you can tell, we don't have a lot of civil jury trials on that. So we just increased it like $1,500 or something like that. Not very much. And then the criminal trials, we definitely increased, and that's because we've almost doubled our jury trials and we need the money in there. Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay. How about questions, commissioners? Please. Oh. Sorry about that.
Green.
There we go. There we go. In your early comment section, you're talking about some extra, about $66,000 to go full-time with the half-time clerk. And then about another 7,000 for the lead worker. And I was trying to look at your information to see where that extra income, extra income was showing up. Could you show me where that would be?
I will do my best. I'm glad Frank's here. On the 1st page, it says intergovernmental revenue
First page of the.
of the budget. And Frank, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Commissioner, she's correct. Intergovernmental revenue line item includes federal and state revenue, and this is a significant increase, almost a doubling, more than a doubling of revenue increase from the state of Montana due to us taking on more jury trials. And Angie, you ought to help me out with this. Is it because we're taking on state trials? Yes. So they have the reimbursement.
Yes, it's the increase in the criminal trials because Judge Rowe has taken so much from the judges to help them see more or to hear more criminal trials.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Roth.
And if I might.
Yeah.
So
please.
intergovernmental revenue in 22-23 was 70 and in 23-24 was 125.6. Is that right?
To date, it is 125.6. We expect that to
Projected 130, so somewhere around 60.
Yep.
So we're covering about 60 of it, of the additional
correct.
money that you're looking for with that.
And Commissioner, if I can add a little bit on the $7,000 on the other position for the, I guess it's kind of like a ladder, but it's not really. I have to work with Misty Edwards and HR to look at that because Angie did mention that it was already in her budget prior. I don't know if it meaning that we might already have budgeted for that position. It's just we brought in somebody at a lower level, but we're budgeted to pay at a higher level. So it might not be an increase of $7,000, but we'll go through that, and when we bring in our new discretionary spending and FTE requests, I'll make sure that's clear and in front of you.
Okay, yeah, I'd just like to see where that.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, he is correct. This position is not a new position. We used to have this lead worker position for years.
Mhm.
And then it's just been the last, I think she's been gone 3-4 years. So I think she's been gone like maybe 3 years or 4 years. She retired. And that's when we didn't do the lead worker position.
So that may already be in the budget, and the other may be, for the most part, covered by increased revenues, which was one of our hopes, is that if new positions were being, or increased FTE were being proposed, that there might be increased revenue to help with that, and or demonstration of specific need, and you might hit both of those categories in this case. So we'll look at that and get a little better picture as we move forward here, but thank you very much for that. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And it is a wild place over there.
It is very wild.
Yeah. And this
This is my last
your
one,
last
so
budget.
peace out.
Yes, the last budget.
I
I
won't get
guess for
sick
those that
anymore
are
every time.
watching, you are retiring at the end of this
I am.
calendar year, right?
January 31st,
January 31st. So,
but I will no longer be in the clerk of court position.
right.
Yep.
Do you have another position in mind?
I'm going to be lead worker in our office, transition to Lisa's position where she transitions to mine, so I can help her out in the office, so I can hit my 25th year, which is January 28th.
Wow.
25 years?
25 years.
I knew her when she was a clerk at Murdoch, so I can't believe that much time has gone by.
Well, thank you for your budget presentation. Anything further from Mr. Baltz or Mr. Cornwell on this budget? Okay.
Thank
How about
you.
public comment? Any public comment? There's no public in the room, but we will move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll turn back to you, Mr. Baltz, Mr. Cornwell, about our calendar here. We're looking like we may have a break until after lunch. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Oh, and Mr. Chair, thank you. So just as a reminder, commissioners, as you hear your budget presentations this week, we are intending to come back on June the 4th is the targeted date to discuss the what we'll describe as the new request or discretionary request that you're seeing presented to you. We're tracking that as we go through these budget presentations. For instance, you just heard a request to take a part-time position to full-time. You heard a request earlier today to increase capital expenditures from Public Works for money to go toward the master planning that they would like to do at their complex. So again, the budget instructions that went out, for our sessions were to bring in status quo budgets to the highest degree possible from the departments unless there was an extraordinary circumstance or a new revenue that had been identified. So just wanted to let you know that we're going through that process, and the presentations, of course, are very appropriate, just like we do every year, but we are tracking requests for new expenditures, and we'll be compiling that list and bringing it back the first part of June. Just wanted to remind you of that. And yes, commissioners, after lunch on the schedule is solid waste, followed by county attorney's office, criminal justice services, disaster and emergency services, fairgrounds, and county extension. So that's what's coming up the rest of the day.
Great. And
There was a suggestion made that the solid waste budget was the commissioner's budget. Is that right?
By some, I'm sure that's what it's. Mr. Cornwell.
Just commissioners, just gonna give you a heads up. I've reached out to the afternoon presenters and let them know that budgets are going really quick and you guys are asking good questions, but the new style here, it doesn't seem to be slowing things down and these budgets seems to be going quick. So I asked them to show up early if they can. So hopefully we won't have any interruptions.
Great, thank you. And that's just a note to those that are watching, listening today as well, that we're going through our budgets as they are described on our agenda. However, they are ahead of schedule. So, so far. So if that continues, then we'll continue through those as they come, and we'll just keep going forward. And there will be other opportunities for folks. We're not making any decisions on these budgets today. This is a preliminary presentation so that we're getting orientated and asking questions. There will be further opportunity for public to engage on these budgets as well as ask questions if they choose. And they can always send us anything via email, phone call, or snail mail if they'd like to at any time. So we'll leave it at that. Any further questions or comments, commissioners, at this time? Okay, well then let us stand in recess until 1 p.m. where we'll start up again. Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon. We will reconvene our meeting from this morning. We were on lunch break and appreciate everyone being back. We are going through budgets. Commissioner Rolfe to my left, Commissioner Payne is on her way in now, and Nadine McCarty to my far left will be taking care of us. Frank Cornwell, Chief Financial Officer, and Roger Baltz, our Chief Administrative Officer. Good afternoon, Commissioner. All right, we're all in place and ready to go. We are going to pick up with department budgets and pieces of department budgets. This is still Public Works. This is a solid waste division. So I will let you introduce it. Director Chambers will pay attention, I hope. So.
Good afternoon, commissioners, chairman. For the record, my name is Jenny Chambers, Lewis Clark County Public Works Director. Today in front of you is fiscal year 2025 proposed budget for the following divisions within Public Works. We're going to talk about the Lewis and Clark County Landfill, Scratch Gravel Solid Waste District, and the Marysville Solid Waste Subdistrict. I do have team members with me today to help with this presentation. Audra Zackrell, Assistant Public Works Director and Finance Coordinator for Public Works. Also Pete Anderson, City of Helena Manager, and also the Lewis and Clark County Landfill Manager through the interlocal that we have with the City of Helena Solid Waste Agreement. So we are here to certainly answer any questions you guys have and go through these details. I'm going to turn over to Audra right now to talk through the budget details associated with these three budgets for the solid waste division. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Again, for the record, my name is Audra Zackrell, Assistant Director of Public Works. As Jenny mentioned, we have three budgets that we're going to review. For all three budgets, I will only be referencing significant differences from the prior year. Each of the personnel budgets will include a 3.5% matrix adjustment, step increases, longevity, and a health insurance premium increase of $25 per month per employee. Also, if I mention CIP, I'm talking about the capital improvement plan. If I mention O&M, I'm speaking of the operations and maintenance portion of the budget. The solid waste divisions are managed by the City of Helena through an interlocal agreement established in 2015. Solid waste includes the Scratch Gravel Solid Waste District, the Marysville Subdistrict and Transfer Site, the County Landfill, and the Augusta Solid Waste District and Transfer Site. There are 5.35 FTEs and 2 city FTEs that manage the solid waste activities using best management practices to achieve the lowest possible cost to ratepayers while maintaining strong stewardship of the earth through recycling, reduction, and reuse. The Lewis and Clark County Commission governs these programs through the Scratch Gravel Solid Waste Advisory Board. The first budget we will be looking at is the Lewis and Clark County landfill. The landfill is responsible for the management of solid waste activities, again, using reasonable science at the lowest possible cost to ratepayers. These budgets were recommended by the Scratch Gravel Solid Waste District Board on April 11th. The primary source of revenue for the landfill is user fees, with the main customer, the City of Helena Transfer Station. The landfill also has approximately 850 active C&D and special waste account customers. For fiscal year 25, the Class 2 tipping fee will remain $24 a ton. The Class 4 tipping fee will remain $21 a ton. I am assuming 42,000 tons from the City of Helena Transfer Station, 230 tons from the Marysville Subdistrict, and 500 tons from private hauler Tri-County Solid Waste.
Just a
Yes,
question for those that might be watching and maybe for us too. Those assumptions, how do you come upon those number of past years and what's happened and trends, those kinds of things? Can you just explain how we come to those expected tonnages?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Chairman, Commissioners. I look at past history of the tonnage that we've brought in over the last 3 years. We usually have conversations with the manager, and we talk about whether we're expecting anything to change over the next year that would perhaps bring in additional tonnage or reduce the tonnage. A lot of times it's just kind of luck. During the COVID, we were not expecting a decrease in tonnage, and we had a huge increase in tonnage. I think people were staying home and cleaning out their garages and stuff. So it's not always easy to assume or calculate what kind of tonnage we're going to bring in, but
Educated.
it's our best educated guess amongst several of us. So
Right. Good. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
no problem. For your information, Commissioners, there's 3 different tables here that show actual tonnage. The first one is from the city transfer station to the landfill in the past 10 years. The second one is the actual tonnage disposed in the Class 4 construction and demolition cell. And then the last one is the actual tonnage deposited in our compost operation. And just to clarify, that's the tonnage we bring in to create the compost. That's not how much compost we're creating. That's the waste that we take in to create compost, the grass clippings, that kind of thing. Okay, any questions before I move on to operations and maintenance? All right, in the landfill budget, minor equipment is budgeted at $48,100. This line item will include a federal surplus equipment opportunity if one is available at $35,000. We're always looking for pieces of equipment such as an excavator, a grader, a vac truck, etc. We also have a tarp at $4,100. Temperature probes for the compost operation at $7,500, and unanticipated small tool replacements at $1,500. Some changes from fiscal year 24, we're adding cement blocks to the compost operation to use as to build mixing cells, $7,500. We're reducing our repair and maintenance supplies to an average use from $50,000 down to $40,000. We're increasing the fuel line item for the Class 4 expansion and the Phase 4B excavation from $70,000 to $110,000. We're increasing the electric utility line item for the lift station operation from 6,000 to 9,000. We're increasing scale preventative maintenance from 1,500 to 6,000. We're adding some hydro seeding on 1 acre of the berm, 8,500. As a side note, they'll be using the hydro seeder that the noxious weed program purchased. We spoke about that this morning. We've removed the GPS annual works manager license support. That will be a savings of $3,650. We're adding engineering for the class 4 expansion, design and survey, the tire monofill expansion, and to update the SWIP 9,500. We also estimated the City of Helena management fee at 82,400. Any questions before I move on to debt service?
You talked about removed GPS annual works manager license support. Could you tell me what it is you removed?
Yes, thank you for that question, Chairman, Commissioners. The Works Manager license support, this was a GPS on our compactor, and it wasn't giving us the data that we needed to be able to reduce some of the engineering costs. And so we're looking for a new program to work with the GPS that gives us the data that we need.
Is
It's technology.
GPS like ground positioning system or something on that, or it's a
That is
computer system?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payne, GPS stands for Global Positioning System,
Thank you.
and it gives you the geometric value as far as levels. The Work Manager License and Support is a subscription through a program that we're removing. And like Audra indicated, we're going to try to find another company and vendor to work with to help us get that data from the GPS in order to utilize within the operations of the landfill.
Okay, thank you. It's so complicated. I mean,
With all this
even solid waste,
technology.
it is so, it's not what I expected at all.
Okay, moving on to debt service. We have a Phase 4A construction loan. That was a 12.5-year loan. We are recommending to pay 3 years at $329,605 to reduce the loan by 2 years. This will bring the final payoff to fiscal year 30. Moving on to capital. We have a capital contribution of $525,000 budgeted. Purchases will include a vehicle replacement at $31,830. Consulting engineering services related to the integrated solid waste master plan recommendations, $50,000, and litter wind panels, $86,520. Any questions on the landfill before we continue? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the scratch gravel solid waste district. The primary source of revenue for the scratch gravel district are assessments on residents' property tax statements. This budget assumes 15,350 assessments at $98 per residential unit for a total revenue amount of 1.5 million. You can see the assessment history since 2014. And $98 is what the current rate is, and there will be no change for fiscal year 25. Scratch Gravel Solid Waste District has no personnel costs. We do have a board clerk that covers the board meetings, and the small amount of time that takes, that person is covered through the Public Works administrative fee that the Scratch Gravel District does pay towards supporting our services. For operations and maintenance, We are assuming that the city of Helena tipping fee will remain $54.75 a ton. And we are assuming that Scratch Gravel residents will bring in about 18,700 tons for a total cost of $1,023,825. The city recycling fee will remain at $275,000. Scratch Gravel pays half of the city of Helena recycling program budget. This is approximately $17 of the $98 assessment. New permits will be issued June 27th, and they'll be effective for the next 2 years, beginning July 1st. So residents will see those in the mail, hopefully before the 4th of July. The City of Helena management fee is budgeted at $74,675. The capital contribution of $210,000. We've budgeted $250,000 for the potential implementation of the Integrated Solid Waste Master Plan recommendations. At this time, maybe Jenny could give a little update on where we are with the Integrated Solid Waste Master Plan.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, let's give you a quick update on the solid waste master plan recommendations. As you recall, the city of Helena and Lewis-Clark County partnered on looking at a master plan for solid waste activities for an overall management within both the city of Helena and Lewis and Clark County. We have formed a steering committee from representatives from both the city and county residents, Scratch Gravel Board, commissioners from both the city, and Commissioner Rolfe is the representative from the county on that steering committee. We've gone through several stakeholder involvement efforts with public surveys, requests for comments and information, and have been working with our Great West engineering firm as our consultant to put together a list of alternatives and potential recommendations according to that plan. We are currently right now in the public comment period. It's currently posted online where we're getting feedback based upon the alternatives that have been established. The consultants are wrapping up those comments and evaluating where we go forward, but we anticipate having that plan finalized here in the next month or so with the final conclusion of the solid waste master plan and recommendations. So we'll certainly present that information to you and others as that plan gets finalized. Some things they're looking at are not only operational at the transfer station, but also within the county. One of the areas for the Scratch Gravel Solid Waste District is a lot of the county residents want to try to ensure that they have places to recycle materials. They can always go to the transfer station, but is there a way to have more recycling locations out within the Scratch Gravel District area so that it's easier and more convenient? In addition, it will also reduce the traffic to the transfer station. A lot of the comments we received from the public was they like the transfer station, they like how it's operating, but there's some congestion that happens with weekends and some of the core times of those operations to try to look at ways to reduce the flow of traffic through that transfer station. And the city of Helena will be working on that activities moving forward. But for the county, if we can assist with finding recommendations for improvements for recycling container locations, or also even long-term, looking to see if we can site a transfer station at the landfill to allow folks to not only dispose of recycling, but also, or to recycle material, but to also dispose of their municipal waste there as well. It would save some traffic for folks going all the way into town to the transfer station versus being, if they live closer to where the Lewis and Clark landfill is located. So a lot of things are being explored, but we're certainly looking forward to that final report here coming due in the next month or so. And then we'll certainly share those recommendations with you. We don't have initially any guaranteed amount of what we're going to do with the $250,000. We just want budget authority. So as those recommendations get established, we can go to the Scratch Gravel District. And then you also as commissioners to say, this is what we'd like to do and implement according to that plan. So just getting a little proactive on hopefully being able to implement some of those recommendations moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might ask
You bet.
a question about that. As I recall from the survey that was done on the solid waste plan that we're working on with the city, there were a lot of people in the city who were interested in plan, but the majority of the people weren't interested in a recycling plan that lived in the county. There were some that were, and those who were interested were only willing to pay like $10 towards the plan. What are we doing to ensure that our majority of our county residents that didn't want to worry about recycling aren't getting charged for that, which the other people said they wanted?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Rolfe, that's a great question and certainly something we asked of the surveys to try to get public input and feedback on. What was asked was a lot about curbside recycling and collection services. In the city, there is private haulers and private collectors that do go pick up recycling on the curbside. We heard a strong voice from the county residents that they weren't interested necessarily in curbside pickup of recycling. But they were open to the idea of having recycling locations that could be used, if they choose to use those based upon the locations of drop off. As far as your question, as far as what they would be willing to pay and kind of universal, we didn't hear from every single county residents. We heard from a good excerpt of those that responded to the survey. They didn't want to pay more than what they're already paying. And so with the assessment of $98, if we were to look at increasing it by another $10 just specifically for recycling, that would not be something I think the county residents would be looking for. But the 98 assessment is, and the $17 breakdown of what they have been paying for the last several years is equivalent to what they've been contributing towards recycling efforts. It also helps with the landfill operation. So by keeping the assessment down for scratch gravel at a certain rate that's impacting all the benefiting users, we're factoring that with the tipping rate of the landfill. And the tipping rate has also not been increased in the last couple of years. So we've really been doing well with the city to manage waste disposal deeds for municipal waste that cannot be recycled. While you increase waste diversion opportunities for recycling and green waste, you can overall balance those costs associated with those two efforts. So I hear you, and I know those are the comments we got from the residents as well. I think we need to just keep an eye on the assessment amount and what that breakdown is for recycling and how we choose to make improvements, not only for the landfill long-term, but also what that does to the scratch gravel district folks as well that are paying the
So
assessment
we're
rates.
really not changing it from what it is now.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. We're not changing it on the waste tipping of the landfill. We're not changing that rate. We're not changing our contribution from the county to the city on the recycling efforts, and we're not changing the assessment for the scratch gravel district folks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thank you. Okay. Keep moving. You
Okay,
guys.
let's keep moving. We'll move on to the Marysville Solid Waste Subdistrict. The primary source of revenue for the Marysville Solid Waste Subdistrict is an assessment on the resident's property tax statement. This budget assumes 550 assessments at $65 per residential unit for total revenue of $35,750. This assessment is to operate the Marysville Solid Waste Transfer Site. Marysville Subdistrict residents also pay the $98 scratch gravel assessment, which pays for their solid waste disposal fees and gives them the ability to also use the City of Helena transfer station. So that can be a little confusing. Marysville Subdistrict wanted a convenience site. They were willing to pay a little extra for the operation of that site. And so they have to pay both of those assessments. The biggest change in revenue for this next year is that the Augusta Solid Waste District will be using the Marysville roll-off truck to haul their waste to the county landfill. A $25,500 interfund transfer has been budgeted to reimburse for that use. However, it will be based on actual usage, based on the FEMA rate per hour. The FEMA rate per hour is $94.49 for that piece of equipment. Are there any questions on that before I move on to
No,
the expense side.
not for me. I think you explained it
Okay.
the other day as well, so.
Also, 7,500 was budgeted to reimburse landfill staff time for hauling the Marysville waste to the county landfill. That is a new thing. We noticed, in the past, there hadn't been, a transfer of staff time. And so we've, fixed that in the fiscal year 25 budget. In operations and maintenance, since the Augusta Solid Waste District will be utilizing the roll-off truck at the 94, the FEMA rate of the 94.49, that fee includes the fuel and maintenance on that truck. And so Marysville needs to budget some additional costs, expenses, fuel and maintenance. And we've budgeted $14,000 for the unanticipated costs that could come up. We've not budgeted any capital contribution and no purchases for fiscal year 25. At this time, I'd also like to comment that these budgets don't present the complete picture of solid waste in Lewis and Clark County. In addition to our budgets, there's also a separate budget for the Augusta Solid Waste District and another budget for the Lincoln Solid Waste District. And I believe those were presented to you at a different time.
Right.
Any questions?
Questions, commissioners? Yeah, thanks for the distinction, though. I think Misty Edwards presented those budgets already, and we've talked about the rates for next year in one of our other commission meetings. Anything else, commissioners, on solid waste?
Solid waste is solid.
It is. Thanks for the great presentation, the
Thank
great
you.
explanation. Pete, glad you're here. We can call you up if you want, but you know, I'm sure you're open not to. But I am calling you out because I just want to express my appreciation for the great partnership and the work that we do together with the city of Helena. So thank you very much for that. And it's worked well. I think that we found our stride here and getting better every year as we keep looking at how to work together in efficient ways. So thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Commissioners, if no more questions on that, I'll take public comment on this budget. Any public comment on solid waste budget? So public in the room, so thank you very much. We'll let you go.
Excuse me, those people.
Well, they are staff. They
are
are,
public people. They pay taxes and they vote.
yes,
That makes
the
them people.
public definition that we're talking about. They are
If you want,
part of our county
you-
system.
and if they want to comment on solid waste, they should.
They sure can. That's why I called them up.
Okay.
All right, you're next. Come on up. This is the budget presentation for the county attorney's office. We have our fine county attorney with us, Mr. Downs. Welcome. And you have guests with you, and I'll let you introduce yourself and your team. And we just appreciate you taking the time to come and spend a little time with us and talk about this
Money.
next year's budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Payne, Commissioner Rolfe, thanks for having us this afternoon. As noted, I'm Kevin Downs, and to my left seated here, you're familiar with Mr. Keegan Shea, who's attends your meetings pretty regularly. Shelley Gleich is in the back. She's been in our office for a long period of time as one of our victim witness coordinators. So I had, what I'll start off with is, and I know commissioners, you've been seeing a lot of PowerPoints and information, so we'll try to make this succinct. And I wanted to start off, I know you have that in front of you. We have a budget summary,
We do, yes.
and it's approximately 3 pages. So the overall picture here for the county attorney's budget, and just there's in reflection upon last year, what our office requested, and in almost all respects, we were well within what we requested last year. And this year, the overall picture for our proposed budget is nearly the same scope and position as last year, with 3 exceptions. Okay, and those 3 exceptions are highlighted in this budget summary. And I want to give you the big picture here, and then I'll get into the justification of why we're making these additional requests. Okay, so this first page that you have in front of you is also up in the PowerPoint behind you. as every department is, there's adjustments that are made over the course of the year based upon promotion and the cost of living or any other adjustments that are countywide. So that's obviously the commissioners, you would anticipate that. So our first request is for one full-time employee to add a second victim assistance coordinator. And this is, I recognize the request for additional employees is something the commission has to make across the county. But I want to provide the justification for that and reason why we're asking for that. So and I'll get into the details of this, but we need this. We need an additional person in our office that is exclusively dedicated to helping contact people in our criminal cases that are both alleged victims or victims and witnesses to help our criminal cases. Okay. And I'll get into the numbers about why we are making that request. We have some of those duties right now. So Shelley is our only victim assistance coordinator in our office. And I think with the increasing volume of caseload that we're handling here in the county, we need help, and we need another additional person to do that. The second request, so that's the first big one. I think that's the big request here. The second one is I'm asking you to consider an ability to reclassify one of our legal assistant 2 positions to essentially a lead legal assistant 3 position. So it's not asking for a new position, it's rather just a reclassification. And I think the importance there, as we see in the larger county attorney offices across the state, is that there's typically a staff member, non-attorney staff member who provides some supervisor oversight with some of the workload. You were gracious enough last year to help us reclassify with human resources 2 of our attorneys. As you know, we have a chief deputy for the civil world, Nico Hash, who you work with, and he's done a great job. So I want to say thanks for your agreement in allowing our office to do that. And also Mary Berry on the criminal side, she's the criminal chief, and I think that's really provided some oversight. So to have the ability to have one of a non-attorney but a legal assistant 2 position to be reclassified. And as we scroll down here, so a couple of the highlights, just for your awareness, we had somebody that was just promoted to a deputy county attorney 2. That's Christine Zadra. She does all of our dependency and neglect cases. So that's when the state steps in if there's a child that needs to be maybe removed or some concerns about where they are with their family. So Christine has done a great job. We have a front desk that we've now moved to half-time positions. And as I noted, this reclassification for these chief civil and chief criminal has been great. I think that's been really helpful to help our office, some of the management oversight. We have interns. It's a similar request as last year. And some of those interns end up being future hires, which I think is good for the county. We have 2 interns right now from the University of Montana Law School that started last week, and we're glad to have them. And they'll be graduating next year, and maybe we can hire them. We had some departures this year. At this point, we don't anticipate any departures. Obviously, that has left a little bit of an open gap for our office to make sure we get fill in those positions. I'm glad to say we just hired a legal assistant 2 within the last couple of weeks, and so she's learning the ropes and is doing a great job for us. First increase request is the full-time employee. Second increase request is to reclassify an existing position to a lead position. And then these other 2, these are minor increases. One is $1,000 increase for our membership dues. Those are due to increased costs. We have membership dues as attorneys for the County Attorney Association, our bar dues. And then we have a couple of our attorneys on the criminal side that are involved with the National District Attorney, and that allows for discounts and training and whatnot. So there's just a small increase there. I'll also asking you to consider and approve a $2,000 increase for both travel and training. I think that is just a reflection of increased costs. We do have attorneys that were able to take advantage of trainings this year, what I ask is if you go to a training, you bring back what you learned and you share it. And our attorneys have done that. I know Mr. Shea and Mr. Hash had gone to a sort of a land use training here locally that I think was really beneficial to their work. We've had one attorney that was just in New Orleans go to a training that was really helpful, and we were able to seek reimbursement or coverage scholarships for those trainings. So I hope you know that we're always looking for opportunities to minimize our costs. So those are the big three takeaways as far as changes go. The rest, as you look down our operating and maintenance, these are all what we requested last year. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think have done a good job as an office about being mindful of our resources and staying within what we requested. Some of this, there's some unpredictability here with particularly what our office might be engaged in, because those issues come up, as the commissioners know. Those can come up unexpectedly today or next week or in a couple of months, so we have to be prepared to address those. We will be getting a vehicle that was already in last year's budget, so that's we're hoping to have a vehicle that is not 10 years old. So and that's used by our attorneys for trainings and whatnot. So that's the budget summary. Before I move to our next portion, I'd ask if anybody had a question.
Commissioner.
Yes.
Back when you were talking about the new FTE and then the reclassification of a legal assistant to administrative legal assistant. Okay, that reclassification will give them a raise in their wages, won't it?
That's correct.
And so that is an increase in your budget.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was
Yep.
understanding
Yep. Yes, Commissioner.
the impact.
And you're exactly right. So the pay matrix for the county, as we have eight legal assistant 2 positions that are currently employed by our office. And the request is that we'd make one of those into a 3. So it would be somebody with a little bit more workload and responsibility to help oversee some of the work.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I move?
Mike, what other funding sources have you identified to help pick up this increase?
Yeah, so for example, I just noted we had a prosecutor that went down to New Orleans. She was able to apply for and accepted a scholarship for that. And so all of her costs, airplane, hotel, was all covered. So that was a great opportunity. So there's nationwide trainings. There's a domestic violence and strangulation training that's put on by an advocacy group. We had 2 attorneys go last year. All those costs, actually 2 attorneys attend, and also some members of the sheriff's office, I believe, that went in and it was all covered. So in regards to training, we're always looking for opportunities to undercut costs. We also have training provided by locally. So if there's an opportunity to do local training, then that limits travel. I think Commissioner Rolfe, you had provided, or there was some awareness about the Montana Department of Justice providing reimbursement for expert witness testimony. So there's a pot of money at the state end that provides reimbursement for costs. So an expert witness would be needed. For example, if you have somebody that's doing a DNA test, or we often engage child abuse, abusive head trauma cases. Those are out of state. So we ask for reimbursement from the state. Now that pot of money is limited, and there's some difficulties in having that spread around adequately. But I think I notified that we did get a reimbursement about $4,800 just recently from that expert witness pot. That's not guaranteed every year. And then there's also, as far as if we can, in options with expert witness testimony, if we can do that via Zoom without having to pay for travel, we're always looking for that opportunity. However, in criminal cases, sometimes that's subject to a legal challenge, and we might need to have somebody in person, just for basics of the Constitution and right to confrontation.
Excuse me if I might
Please.
follow. It would appear that we're approaching $150,000, $200,000 to add a new person and reclassifying people and the other things. So it doesn't sound like that training would come to that. I was hoping that maybe there was a funding source that would get us somewhere around that $150,000, $200,000 range.
So you're asking specifically as to those requests? I see. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sorry if I didn't address that adequately. You're asking about possible funding opportunities for those increases.
Yeah.
As far as the victim assistance coordinator, there is federal grants out there for one big pot that comes out is the VAWA. It's the Violence Against Women Act. I know there's many entities that apply for those. We have not done that in the county attorney's office. I don't think we've ever done that. Those sometimes supplement positions. However, those are never certain. It might be available for a year and then go away. So what I'm recognizing and requesting is that this is a position that we need and we need moving forward, not just for a year or two, but and I'll provide the justification why. And I have another document that I'd like to reference.
Okay. Great. Any other questions right now?
No, that was exactly, I wasn't sure that, what's the old saying about, you shot the hell out of the tree, but you missed the pigeon. His question was, how are we going to pay for the extra FTE? And and we're not saying they're not appropriate, they're not necessary. They work hard and they deserve adequate wages, but it's got to come out of the same pocket as everything else we're seeing. And so we really have to look at if there's a way you can figure out, maybe renting out the Attorney General's gracious or spacious garage facility or something, you come up with extra money to balance your budget to have these necessary increases. That's all we're asking.
No, but thank you for the clarification.
Well, we'll wait and listen to the
Yep.
next piece here, and then we can
Absolutely.
get into it.
So another document that's before the commissioners is our staffing and workload measures. And I'll ask you just that outlines who we have right now. If you go to the third page, and I think I know you will be presented with various numbers that I have here through other departments, whether that's primarily the courts, and there's a lot. There's a lot of cases that our office is handling. Okay, and I have a graph to show you just the increase, but we're looking from 2010 until now. Huge increase. So let's start at the top. Is 2010 there was 14 jury trials, felony jury trials in 2010. Last year, so this is about 13 years later, we had 46. So what that means is people from the community are called in to be jurors or felony criminal cases. You can see that number has increased over time, and also those new felony case filings per year. We anticipate at this point that we'll be up to upwards of 650 cases. That's new felony cases. Those aren't somebody that's already got a case going. Some people might have more than one case. So those are new felony cases. Felony PTRs, those are petitions to revoke. Those are numbers that are based upon someone on probation or parole. And we file those if somebody is not following along with what they're supposed to be doing because of a prior felony conviction. Okay, this is just felony. This is not misdemeanor. This is just felony. Mental commitments, you can see those fluctuate depending upon the year. Obviously, as the commissioner, you're aware of the issues with the state hospital and the challenges that we've had in addressing people with mental illness and what's the right place for them to go. Those are just commitments to primarily the state hospital. Abuse and neglect, we have, as I mentioned, we have one attorney dedicated to all those cases. Those numbers can fluctuate, and it depends on how many kids, how many families. And so there's just a lot. Guardianships, we do justice of the peace complaints and citations. Those are in the thousands. Youth court petitions, those are when a juvenile gets in trouble. And then also civil cases, as the commissioner is aware, we have, upwards of 30 ongoing civil litigation that I know you're apprised of. as those move forward. So what the justification for this, the big asks here, the increases are the increase in the workload. We just have a huge increase in the number of cases that we're dealing with that literally impact people across this entire county. And some of that is unpredictable, as I mentioned. So if we could predict it, perhaps there'd be other things we could adjust as well, as far as we could predict when a crime was going to happen or predict when a child was in a difficult situation, a need to be removed by the department. But we can't. So we have to have, as a county, the ability to respond to things that impact people's lives in the community. So I'm going to, that's sort of the big picture numbers. I'm going to ask if you go, there's a, the request justification, which I believe is also in there, some slides. And so, and I guess I understand the questions about where's the funding going to come from, and are there other pots of money that come from? And I think when you understand this, that there is a justification to add one employee to our office. Okay. And again, I'm just going to highlight the workload that we have is significant. And if in an ideal world, I'd come up to and ask you for 2 to 3 more attorneys and 3 to 4 more staff. But I recognize, so I recognize you have the perspective and the oversight for all the county departments and making decisions about this. But we need an additional person. So we have right now one person that their job is the victim assistance coordinator. Okay, we have, and I outline it here, we have as attorneys legal obligations to make sure that we contact both victims and witnesses. We have to by Montana statute. We have to consult victims of certain crimes. We have to inform them of certain hearings, and they have the right to engage our office about what is an appropriate resolution. And those have to be prompt. We have to let them know if we charge a crime, they need to know right away. So just first, professional obligation, the American Bar Association for Prosecutors, it obligates us ethically to be consulting victims and witnesses. Now, what's important to know for you is that as a prosecutor, we cannot by ourselves call a victim without somebody present. So that is what the victim assistance coordinator does. They have to be present in order to, so we have an additional person in case in case somebody says something different, or in case we cannot be a witness in our own case. So we have to have somebody present. So we have an ethical obligation, and I think we have a community obligation. We have an obligation to ensure, as I note here at the bottom, that we tell, alleged victims or victims in our community that they matter and what happened to them matters, and explain to them the process. So this morning, we had 5 new felony cases that we filed. That was just this morning. And so each of those cases has an alleged victim, and each of those cases has a number of witnesses that would need to engage at some point. And we have an obligation to contact them. So that contact happens within an ideal world is within a day. Some cases are a little bit delayed, make sure we have updated contact. So our office is constantly contacting people involved in cases. And that could be everything from a theft to a sexual offense to an assault. And we had all of that this morning. So Shelley is our only person on our felony cases that has her dedicated job as that. Okay. So this slide, I go back up to slide 1, sorry. So these are the big picture numbers again from that graph from the workload measures. The top one is new felony cases. Okay. That's new cases that we file where there's at least one victim and numerous witnesses in each of those. So we anticipate, over 600 new felony cases. Now, what it doesn't reflect is that we get a number of cases that will review hundreds, more than the 650 that I'm noting. Hundreds of cases come in for review that we might not pursue. It might end up being a misdemeanor, or we might say there's not probable cause to pursue this case, or we could prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. We're held to those burdens. So that's the number of cases that the state would say there's probable cause to pursue this and presumably this reasonable doubt, we could prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. So each of those, so imagine 650, there's at least one alleged victim, and there could be 5 officers, a witness, and we have to have somebody to help coordinate that. Okay. So right now we have one person in our office that's their dedicated job. And it's untenable to expect one person. So we're trying to divvy up these responsibilities. And if you've ever been a victim of crime, how important it is to have somebody actually care and call you and tell you what's going on. And so it's been really important to me that since I took over this office, I know it was very important to Mr. Gallagher, is like, we are prioritizing this. We have to make sure that we're contacting people. So the bottom line is that's petitions to revoke. Those also have witnesses and sometimes they have victims. So if you're looking at what we anticipate this year, it's 900 those are active felony cases. This is not misdemeanors. So there's 900 or so cases, and those are divvied up with our prosecutors, and each of them have between 70 and 120 cases active right now. And we have, they are obligated to contact victims and witnesses, and they can't do that themselves. They have to have somebody sitting in the room doing that for them and with them. Okay. So the volume is significant. I'll go to the next slide.
Could I ask a question?
Please.
We recently funded the sheriff's office with cameras so that the officers, anything they do, there's a videotape of. Couldn't that sort of thing be used in your office as well, instead of having another FTE, that everything is videotaped, and if you're going to talk to somebody, you turn on your phone recorder or whatever? Could some of this be dealt with electronically?
No, it can't. So if we're meeting with a victim or a witness, we might be discussing when the trial is, and we use body cam. I think you're referencing body worn camera, BWC, as we reference it. Sheriff's office, they have those pinned here.
I don't know what they look like. I just know we paid a bunch for them.
Yes. So those are used when an officer has a contact. So they go on if their lights go on, or if they switch it on. I think there's a button that they press. I know the sheriff's office has a new system that they're using, and those are to record their encounters with the public. Okay. So to think that we would wear our own body camera or set that system up and record it and then have, I don't know how that would work. We have to have person-to-person contact, and we could not, we can't be a witness to our own case, if that makes sense. We have to have somebody that helps coordinate schedules, plea offers, what's going on with the case, and that requires phone calls and in-person meetings. So I don't know I guess I'm not sure having a camera would actually serve that purpose.
I'm getting very used to having technology take care of some of our problems. So
yeah,
onward.
I appreciate the question. We do thank you for you had approved a couple of years ago our case management system, which is all electronic, and that has been a huge a source of efficiency and resource for making sure that we're managing these cases appropriately. So I'll go back to last year. We had 46, that's jury trials. That doesn't include bench trials. Each of those cases would have multiple people that we would need to coordinate with. Again, we need an additional person to help do that. It's a significant amount of work. I'll go to the next one. This is justice court. Each of these cases have at least one victim and numerous witnesses. So I was just speaking about felony district court cases. These are the misdemeanors. These are in the thousands. Our justice court attorneys have hundreds of active cases. So I mentioned the felony attorneys have between 70 and 120 active cases. Our justice court, we have 2 attorneys dedicated to that, to those 2 courts, Judge Piscalich and Judge Swingley, and they have hundreds of cases. So the volume is only increasing. So what I think is, I think it's helpful to compare, to make some sort of comparison about what our other larger offices are doing, specifically in regards to victim witness coordination. Okay. So Yellowstone County, they're a much bigger jurisdiction. They have 9 people dedicated exclusively to handling victim and witness contact. Gallatin has 4, Missoula has 3, Cascade has 3, Flathead has 1, and then they have several staff they're doing. So they have, I approximated it was 4. We have 1. And I think it's so critical that we're doing this piece. It's not only helps our cases moving forward, but our victims, as a right of Montana statute, they deserve that communication. So that's the big picture justification here, is like, we need this. Our county needs this. Our office needs this. And I recognize it's an increase. I understand that. And so I present that, but it also is the impact that this can have is significant. And we're only seeing an increase in our workload. And I think that's going to be reflected in other presentations by some of the other departments, particularly the courts. And they're all going to come in here and say, we got way too many cases. And it's true, because there's a lot of cases, and, but I'm not going to come in here and say, we need 5 more people. I know that we could use 5 more people. I'm asking for 1. And the justification for the reclassification, we don't need a new employee. We need someone that has the ability to have a little bit of a supervisory role, and they deserve to be paid a little bit more. I think it's a fair request. So I appreciate, I hope that makes sense. I'm welcome, of course, I'm open to more questions should you have them. But I'm glad to say our office is running well. It's very busy. And we could always use a little more help.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it very much. Questions, commissioners, now? I have a couple. I just wanted to wait till you were done there. Thank you very much for this, Mr. Downs. And I turn to you guys, just facts for those that might be watching, listening, whatever. The county attorney's office is paid out of the general fund. So there aren't other revenue sources. There is, maybe some special program. There is a way to, apply for a grant or something like that, which was discussed a little bit, but it is funded out of the general fund. And the other piece of this is that though we hold the purse strings over to the overall county, we need to make sure that our offices and our essential services that the county provides have the resources they need to function. So one of the things I'm looking for, I just say that as to preface this statement, is that one of the things I'm looking for is just that justification. It's like, well, every department come in and say, boy, it'd be nice to have 2 or 3 more people. But if it's something that you're saying, wow, we're having trouble even completing our obligations if we don't have more people, then that speaks to me. I think that our criteria for this budget was, make a justification that you really need this new position to do your job, or you have, hey, I got this gazillion-dollar grant and I need 2 people to pull off this new programming or whatever it might be. So new revenue or a justification. And so that's what I'm looking for. And I think you made a strong case. Obviously, we're going to have to look at this, like you even said, across the entire county family and how it all fits in. But from my perspective, I think it is our obligation to make sure that our departments and our offices have the resources they need to provide the service to the public that is the reason for our existence here and the work that we do. So that's kind of where I am. And we'll, from my perspective, look seriously at it and make sure that we're trying to do the best we can by you and all of your staff and ultimately the public, because that's who we're serving. And so I'll leave it at that. Any questions or comments, commissioners, for you guys? Any further questions? Thank you very much for a great presentation. And glad that we got to see Keegan today. Didn't know if we get to see him today, so that's good. And appreciate the work that you do and all your folks, and recognizing that doing as much as you can with what you have.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Payne, Commissioner Rolfe. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything, gentlemen, that?
Well, Mr. Chair, I have one thing. It has nothing to
Please.
do with the specifics of this
Oh.
budget, but Just as a reminder, a few days ago when we met and went over the commission budget and the administration budget, County Attorney Downs mentioned the mental health evaluations, the Warm Springs. So the county attorney's office plays a very important role, and if not the leading role in those actions. And if you'll recall, we talked about increasing that line item in the miscellaneous budget of the county commissioners to a little over $200,000. So to address those increased costs that we've been experiencing this year, we talked about making sure we prepare for that for next fiscal year, just as a reminder.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else that you want to leave us with, or are you good to go?
No, I really appreciate the consideration.
You bet. And we'll have further opportunity, hopefully, as the budget goes along to discuss. If there's any questions, we'll.
Yeah, I'm more than welcome to come back or answer any other questions from any of the commissioners.
Very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. And with that, how about public comment on this budget? Any public comment? Any public comment? All right. Seeing no public come forward, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Mr. Baltz, my understanding is we are at that point of a break. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, we are, and I believe I see Kelly McBride out in the hallway as well too. Her budget will be next.
Okay, well, we will take a short one then. How about that? How about 10 minutes or so? Is that enough for
fine.
you, commissioners? Sounds good.
Is that okay?
We'll take
with you?
about a 10-minute break and then you are on. So welcome. All right, we're in.
Giving up on it. You're just
Not at all. We want to just spend
reconfigure it.
1 year really digging in and looking at the research and what is the best way to stop that intergenerational involvement in the criminal justice system.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Very good. Other questions? No, I appreciate you asking that question, Commissioner, because it is a really important piece, and Kelly's entire department really was instigated to make impact on the system in terms of reducing the number of people in our detention center, reducing the number of people in the detention center or with living with mental illness, impacting the generational factor and these families that we see the same names coming through over and over again. So all of that, yeah, pieces of that puzzle. So thank you for asking a question, and it's a good answer. So glad we're working to improve that or make it more impactful in the future than it was in the past. All right, anything else right now for this? And today, oh, sorry.
More grants and outside funding for this program in particular? All of them. So we look at grant opportunities that come from both the state, nationally. Jillian manages the medication assisted treatment, the Matt Bridges grant that we have. That's from Bureau of Justice Assistance. And again, just continually looking at other opportunities for funding, whether it's federal, state, or private funds, and applying for those. And we do have grant funds in our budget.
Yeah, maybe speak to that mix a little bit. You have several grants, or at least a couple of grants that you're working on now that are kind of participatory in this budget. So there is already significant grant funding as part of your base.
In the budget, correct. We have coming up $200,000 from Bureau of Justice Assistance. That is the MAT Bridges program. MAT stands for Medication Assisted Treatment. From the state of Montana, the Office of Court Administrator Pretrial Services grant is $101,000. I will tell you, I've asked for more, and I'm crossing my fingers that we'll get it. But right now I'm leaving it at 101 because that's what I know. Department of Health and Human Services HEART funds for our behavioral health team is $296,844. So those are the grants we're managing currently.
So yeah, that if I added right in my head, you're getting close to $500,000 there in grant funding. That's part of
the income.
That's already part of this budget.
Yes.
Bless you. So Yeah, that offsets the local costs, direct local costs.
Correct.
We're all, as Commissioner Payne would say, we're all paying into these grant funds in some way or another, whether our federal or state taxes, whatever. But from our direct county funding, those offset that. Yeah, okay. Did that help, Commissioner, with some of the, yeah,
We'll also continue looking at private foundation grants as well. That the department started initially with a grant from the Montana Healthcare Foundation. And so that's a big deal. That was before the levy passed. Montana Healthcare Foundation provided those funds. So we'll continue to look at those private grantors as well.
great. Thank you very much. If no other questions, this isn't decision day, this is presentation, and we will take all of this under advisement and look at it, and we'll be working it through over the next month here or so. So thank you very much, and public will have other opportunities to engage with this and all the other budgets. So
Great.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for looking at this.
Thank you for the good work. Is there any public comment on this particular budget? Any public comment? Okay, seeing no public come forward, we will move on, commissioners. Our next is DES, Disaster and Emergency Services. And as usual, I'll let you introduce yourself and your teammate here.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Take it away.
Commissioners, my name is Kyle Sturgill-Simon. I'm the Emergency Manager for Lewis and Clark County. With me is also Autumn Ashdale, DES Disaster and Emergency Services Coordinator. I have a slide, but honestly, it's the same as the sheet here, so up to you if you want me to put it up. Okay.
Oops, I'll say that again. For the public that might be watching, I had my mic off. It might be good for you to put that up, so thank you.
Yeah, not at all. Trying to get the mic tall enough here. So again, Kyle Sturgill-Simon, Emergency Manager for the county. Before you is the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget for our program. It includes the standard adjustments for personnel recommended to us with the 3.5% cost of living adjustment, step increases, health plan contribution increases. Past that, we have personnel, no changes to staffing. Currently, the program is staffed by myself as emergency manager and Autumn Ashdale as the Disaster and Emergency Services Coordinator. We made a small change in that for miscellaneous payroll in the off chance that we're asked to assist in a mutual aid situation where we may be able to provide assistance outside of the county. We have some funds that would cover personnel costs with the expectation of those expenses being reimbursed for longer term deployments. Of course, here locally, we're pretty used to helping our neighbors out for a couple of days at a time without asking for payment back. This would be for longer ones, such as the opportunity we had earlier this year, where we went through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, participated in a state-to-state assistance for the Maui fires in Lahaina. Those are a little bit tough to budget for because you don't know if you're going to be asked for help or not. So we put them in sort of like you would maybe like a grant where you're going to apply for it and maybe not get it, but you at least have some funds for it in case you do. After that, on the operations and maintenance, we did increase our minor equipment for a radio for the truck that we have in the program, but we are expecting to apply for grants to cover as much of that as we can, probably 50%. Fixed charges, our rent by moving over to the Law and Justice Center has also increased, so that's an $8,936 change moving over. Larger space than we had before. We were cohabiting with some offices here. And so the move has been very nice and it's already paying dividends in our relationship with the Sheriff's Office and Helena Police Department. We get to bug them much more often. With help from ITSD, we've actually brought our IT costs down. We had a cache of equipment that was in case of emergency. When I came on board, we had an inventory presented to us of everything that we had, computers and phones wise. With my experience in disasters, technical equipment that sits is sometimes more of a hindrance during an emergency. There's nothing worse than firing up a computer and having it have to download updates for 4 hours. So we spoke to IT and the agreement is in place. We can borrow what we need to when we need to, instead of having equipment sit and age out. And so we're able to decrease our IT costs pretty significantly by doing that. We have a healthy capital improvement plan and we're keeping our contribution the same at 4,000 as well.
Great, thank you.
What is your?
I'll have to
plan?
defer. I saw the number not too recently. I'll have to defer to Mr. Cornwell.
Commissioner, I can supply you that after the meeting. I don't have that in front of me. I apologize. It is a fully funded CIP though. It is one of the ones that doesn't need any increases to stay funded.
Commissioner, were you looking for what they have total or what they
Yeah.
fund out of that?
No, I see the
Oh.
the 4,000 there. I just wondering what their total reserve was at.
Not sure what the reserve is, but you probably know the items real quick offhand. It's the
Yeah, we currently have it planned for a portable generator, the truck that we have, and then one other item was a smart board at our emergency operations center for presentations. And we may be phasing that out actually and going to something else.
But the generator and the truck are the main things that you're saving for in your capital improvement plan?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Any other questions? Commissioner,
Can I give a remark?
please.
I attended the DES meeting last week, I think it was, and Autumn, who is sitting right back there, gave a presentation of her amazing education when she went to Hawaii. She found that in other communities, the police department, the law enforcement, and the fire department, they don't talk to each other. They don't work together to coordinate. There was an instance where the fire department had called the power company to shut off electricity because there were all these power lines down and stopping traffic. Well, they didn't tell law enforcement. Law enforcement shut the highways down because they thought there were power lines there. I mean, I was just appalled that communication is so important and our people do it without question. We've got to, I just really appreciate the fact that you communicate with Sheriff Dutton, with the volunteer fire departments. It's a team effort, and I'm very impressed with the way this all is moving into place to protect, me and my grandchildren and all of us. So thanks for helping us get this figured out.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anything else? Anything else from finance or from CAO's office? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we'll be continuing to work through these over the next month and we'll have opportunities for final work on these as we go along. Something, Frank, that you had?
I was just gonna add nothing to do with this
Okay.
budget, just that we have our Fairgrounds manager. He is been subpoenaed. He is in court, so he cannot make it.
It's not going to be available.
At least not this early.
Yeah.
And then Matt Walter, the extensions manager, is on his way, so he should be here soon.
Great. Well, maybe we'll, after I ask for public comment here, any public comment on this particular budget? Any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Maybe we'll take a short recess until Mr. Walter shows up. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back. We'll reconvene our meeting. Thank you very much and welcome to our new guest. We have, let's see, County Extension. And Matt, I'll let you introduce yourself and your position, and then we'll jump right in.
Thank you,
And-
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name for the record is Matt Walter, and I am the department head for the County Extension Department here in Lewis and Clark.
All right, we want to hear the highlights of your budget for this coming.
So it's fairly plain Jane, so to speak. In comparison to last year, the budget request is down almost $100,000, and primarily that has to do with the reason we had that money in the first place was due to cost savings from positions being open.
Right.
And there was too much money to go into the actual reserve. So that money was placed in the contract and services. And then last year, a large portion of that was placed into the CIP. So we were able to bring it down, and now it is able to go into reserve.
Okay.
So that's where the biggest change is. The other change is that this year, for the first time since 2018, the agent salary share portion has actually increased from $37,000 to $39,000. And that is it's about a 1% increase. What that means is that for the county portion that you pay for the agents, it has gone up from 41% to about 42.5%, 43%. So you are paying roughly 43% of the agent's salaries. That includes 3 agents in the office, myself as the Ag and Natural Resources agent. We have Shay Bursma, who is our Family Consumer Sciences and Community Vitality agent. And then we have Emily Scruggs, who is our 4-H agent. So every year, usually in the fall, around September, October, I bring you that agreement. And that agreement has those salary shares on it. That is probably the most oddball increase that has happened to our budget for this year. Other than that, line items have stayed primarily the same, going off of actuals for the year. Nothing major. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Questions, commissioners? Your CIP, the things that you save for generally that you're hoping to purchase when you're ready, a vehicle, what else?
Usually it is a vehicle, yes. So right now we have 3 vehicles for the department. We have an older blue pickup, newer Tundra, and then a new-ish Honda CRV. And those kind of get the 3 of us where we need to go and how we need to get there. And we've changed the way we do our vehicles. We're not going on a yearly basis anymore, where it was every 8 years. I've decided to change us to a mileage standard. So when we hit that 120 mileage kind of part on the vehicle, that's when we'll decide that it's time to get a new one. Because the Tundra, for example, is a 2021 and it has 15,000 miles on it. So it has not gone super far in the time since we've got it. And I didn't feel that in 8 years, it was fiscally responsible to go out and shell out for a new one, especially with the cost of trucks right now. So that's
No need.
yeah. So that's the plan for the CIP and how we'll spend that when the future comes. Because the next one on the rotation would be the CRV, and it's sitting at 36,000 miles. So it's got plenty of years ahead of it.
Good, thank you. And as a taxpayer, I thank you.
I hesitate to be, I'm not real good with numbers. And so your explanation, contract services. So we have a contract with Montana State University,
Correct. We have an MOU.
a memorandum of understanding, and in it says Lewis and Clark County will provide how many dollars?
39,000 per agent,
Okay,
which is it actually calculates based on the clerk and recorder's salary. So over the years since 2018, the clerk and recorder salary in most counties has gone up. But the county's portion of that has not changed in that time. And they kind of decided that 6 years, because 2018 was the last time. 6 years on, it was time to bump it up a portion, like I said, and it goes up from 41% to 43%. So,
See, that's where I'm getting
Okay.
confused. So a year ago, we had 37,000 per
Mhm.
agent. All right. And now for 25,
mhm,
we will increase it to 39,000 per agent.
yes.
But you don't get 39,000. You get, because that's only 41% of it.
So at 37,000, it was 41%.
Okay.
And now at 39,000.
Before you move on, so 37,000 is what the county gave you.
Yes.
And then the state or Montana State University provides another,
67%.
but
And
how many dollars? So $37,000. I want to find out how much you're making.
gotcha. So for instance, I make $67,000 a year. To be clear, the money that the county contributes to the university does not directly go into my paycheck. It goes into a three-way fund. So,
The three-way fund.
so there is county dollars, state dollars, and federal dollars.
Oh, okay. I didn't know federal was, I'm
It's,
glad I asked this information.
it's not,
We're running early here.
it's not a lot on the
Okay.
federal side and hasn't changed in a number of years. But so the 39,000 does not directly go into my paycheck. It goes into a pot that the paycheck is then distributed out of, because that's how accounting works.
Sure.
At least that's what I'm told.
Okay. Okay. I was just confused.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your explanation. Thank you.
And it's very dependent on agent too. So, like I'm likely, I don't know for sure, but I'm likely the highest salaried in the office. So you get more bang for your buck on me than you might one of the other agents.
Okay. Thank you. Makes sense.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Commissioner Rolfe? Pretty straightforward, been a great partnership for a long time,
We appreciate it.
and we appreciate you, all the work you do here. So thank you for that. Anything of significance we need to think about from your perspective?
Just a quick add that their CIP is another one that's fully funded. So
Yeah, sounded like it. Yeah, that's good.
That's because of his manipulation of the truck budget. He understands you don't necessarily have to replace it.
That's a good thing. And the vacancy savings really added up over
They
time.
make a huge difference.
Yeah.
All right. So no concerns from finance
Nope.
and CAO. Okay, thank you. We really appreciate you coming over. And
Yeah.
hanging out with us for a little bit. We are in that preliminary budget, just presentations right now. We'll be working through them over the next month, and all will probably be well in your case, but we'll let you know if anything changes.
Very good. I noticed there isn't a snack bar this year.
Yeah.
You knew
Well,
you were forgetting
new
something.
new finance officer and
Yeah.
Did the former finance officer used to have a
well,
Nancy always
had to-
brought
we had to
cookies,
blame
Frank.
it on someone.
Nancy?
All right, thank you very much.
Probably better not.
All right, thank you very much.
We want to rake him over the coals, just. Mhm.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, is there any public comment on this budget? Any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing no public
You can
come
go out.
forward, we will move on. Thank you. All right, Mr. Baltz, I turn to you. We will find a place and a spot for Mr. Tenney later on in our process. So the fairgrounds budget will not be presented today, likely.
Yes,
And-
Mr. Chair, what you just said. We've received word from Mr. Tenney that he's tied up in some court proceedings, and so it's approaching 3 o'clock now. Of course, it's up to you, Mr. Chair, but I would just suggest you go ahead and end our meeting today, and we will work Mr. Tenney in on Thursday wherever we can.
Great. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any further discussion about anything today from today? All right, how about public comment on any item that's under our jurisdiction but not on our agenda today? And there is no public in the room. So with that, Commissioner, we will stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.